Hello, and welcome once again to the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. I'm Brian Vitale, and this might be, somehow, surprisingly, the most exciting week we've had this calendar year so far. We'll have to see and deliberate on that at the end. To match the excitement, we've got an extra large cast here today. Let's go through them. I have George Foster.
Hello, everyone.
Josh Torres.
That's grim, man. We're 5 months in. It's like, okay, finally, things are really exciting.
Adam Vitale.
Hey, guys.
James Galizio. And welcome back, Chow Min Woo.
Hello.
So yeah, we've got a new Guilty Gear Strive beta going on right now. If you hear a arcade stick beatings in the background, just assume that Josh is playing it during the podcast.
Yeah, I would definitely do that for sure. Like, whatever you say.
We've got Mass Effect going on. Some people are still playing through Resident Evil, obviously. Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis beta just started yesterday. A few other exciting things. We have a couple new reviews up on the site, a couple new features. We had the new trailer for the Final Fantasy XIV upcoming Endwalker expansion. So a whole bunch of stuff.
It's so good.
I don't know anything about the game, but I watched the very long CG trailer for it, and I'm like, man, this is hype, and I don't even know what I'm looking at. So
all I remember is the music was pretty cool. They said higher a lot during the music.
When they show the water city.
Yeah, and there's also just like this kind of communal excitement for it. Like everyone else is excited, so I want to be excited too, even though I don't know what's going on.
Maybe time to dig in. They always tell us it's never too late to dig in.
So obviously, I don't really know what.
He's too busy. Well, it's too late for him right now because he's going to be busy with Final Fantasy.
Oh yeah,
XI.
that's more on that later. That really has nothing to do with like current events or new releases, but was also a thing that happened yesterday. So I have no idea like how to peel this onion and pick something to talk about first.
You can go first. You seem to have a lot of things on this Google Doc that we use.
Okay. I listed 4 things here that I had done in the last 7 days. The first 2 I'm going to nip in the bud pretty quickly. I had talked on previous podcasts about NieR Replicant Remaster and SaGa Frontier. Well, I was able to basically put a pin in both of those games before the excitement of the weekend approached. I wanted to kind of like see the credits, go through all the storylines in SaGa, see all the endings in NieR. So I managed to do that. I don't want to bog down like the podcast that is already probably going to be pretty packed by revisiting those topics. My main takeaway is that I am really eager at some point to squeeze in another playthrough of NieR Automata, because now that I have like the proper context that seems like it's pretty much expected of you when you play that game, even though it is a little bit removed from the other game in the series, there's obviously enough connective tissue there where it feels like you really should play both, and I kind of played them in the improper order. I enjoyed it a lot. A lot of the I complained last time a little bit about how that third playthrough drags on a bit, but obviously it ends on a high note with both the original final ending and then the new thing that they added for the remaster. SaGa Frontier, I played through all the Fuse storylines, which I thought were kind of like a nice curiosity, but I didn't really feel that strongly about them. By the end, I was just kind of like rattling through them. How it works in that game is that it's got 8 playable characters, but the one they added for the remaster, Fuse, he just kind of rattles through everyone else's story with a few modifications, and they're usually like incredibly short.
You could say he fuses all the storylines in his own route.
Yeah. The thing is that his name is Fuse because he has like a short temper, not because of like connecting things together. English, how does it work? But I didn't feel that strongly about it. Like by the time I was on like my 4th Fuse and 5th Fuse like story, I'm like, all right, I've seen this. I can blitz through this in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I was just kind of like clearing it out as if it were a chore and not a game. So maybe not feeling as strongly about that as.
Yeah, I in the same boat there. I think it was just there just to like solve plot holes that they couldn't explain back in the PlayStation. So
Yeah, and it's also a nice marketing buzz where it's like we added a playable character, even though it works differently and isn't quite as good as what preceded it. And then, okay, so the other two games on my list are both MMOs, one very new and one pretty old. So on Friday, yesterday, at the time of this recording, I went ahead at some of the prodding of James and bought and downloaded the hot Final Fantasy MMO, Final Fantasy XI.
Yeah, finally, a good MMO.
Yeah, I finally made time for it. And that, it took me like 90 minutes to install it properly because it has like the Square Enix the Square Enix account system is already kind of a mess. It's better than it was like 6-7 years ago, but it's still a bit cumbersome. And then on top of that, it's tied into like the vestiges of Play Online, which some of it has been retired, and some of it is like still around, and some of it is retired. It's a mess. And then it's like you gotta connect the two accounts like retroactively and then go through this Play Online launcher, which launches on your PC in like a 400 by 300 pixel window.
And keep in mind, both Brian and I have like 4K monitors, and using WindowWare turns off Windows scaling for that window.
Yeah, well, WindowWare is like a fan patch mod app thing that you run alongside Final Fantasy XI just to make it play a little bit nicer with modern PCs. So I spent about 60 minutes installing, like setting up Play Online, installing the client, downloading the game files, etc., getting WindowWare to work, all that. And then I logged into the game, spent about like 30 minutes putzing about figuring out how to play it because it does not have like modern conveniences that modern MMOs have. And also, like, I've always played MMOs on PC with mouse and keyboard, and Final Fantasy 11 obviously is also a PC game, but it really feels like it was designed for consoles and gamepads first, obviously being playable on PlayStation 2 and Xbox 360 at one point. So I'm having to get used to, like, you can use the mouse sort of to do some things, but it's not intuitive. It doesn't work. Like, it's almost better to play it like, remember old school PC games where you'd like move with the arrow keys and interact, like Doom originally didn't have mouse control or whatever. That's kind of what it feels like. And just figuring out how to. So I want to put more time into Final Fantasy XI, and I don't want to talk about it a ton today because I've only put like an hour into it.
I guess it's a funny thing to mention that, purely coincidental on both of your parts, but like it's the 19th anniversary of Final Fantasy XI as well today.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why I want to play it is just because I kind of just want to see, like, at the time I'd really been excited to play it, but I was a lot younger. I didn't have a good PC, or I didn't have like whatever you needed to play it online on the PS2. So I kind of feel like finally I have the opportunity to do it now for no real specific reason. It's not like there's anything external pushing me to play it, but I kind of want to just do it just to kind of like just to kind of like scratch this curious itch that I have that has been kind of lingering for a long while. So I'm probably not gonna like make it a main game that I'm gonna put a ton of time into all at once, but I'm gonna keep like poking at it, just like putting an hour here, an hour there.
Trivia time. Yeah. How to all of you? How old was George when Final Fantasy XI came out?
Well, 19, and George is like what, 16? So
I actually don't know. When did it come out?
He didn't.
Well, it's not. It's the 19th year anniversary. So
2001.
It came out in 2002.
Oh, yeah, I was 3 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how George is just here to be the British guy and the young guy. You're filling two roles on this guy. All right. All with, just all the love, endearingly. But I'm excited to just play something that isn't so convenient, is a bit obtuse, does require a little bit of hand holding, like with online guides and whatever. For some reason, I'm not turned away from that. But then I got distracted because as soon as I had Final Fantasy XI installed and ready to go, and I had put a few hours into it, the beta for Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis kicked off. So I basically shifted gears from a 19-year-old game to the beta of a game releasing this year. And a lot of what I'm talking about here, I've overlapped a bit with James, who also poked at Final Fantasy XI, and we played a little bit of the beta together, and I'm planning. Like, if I was not doing this podcast, I'd probably be playing it right now. And it's the first takeaway immediately that I have when I booted up the new Genesis beta, and this is what I want to spend the majority of my session here today talking about, is that it's been a while since I've played. Like I've played Phantasy Star Online 2, this game, which obviously came out like 8 years ago. A lot of the other MMOs in the market, like Elder Scrolls Online, Final Fantasy XIV, Guild Wars 2, and WoW,
They're established.
they're all like 7-8 years old or older. So playing something that that is like releasing with like modern engine rendering and modern visuals and actually stresses the PC quite a bit, even if you've got a pretty high end one, it just looks gorgeous. Because I guess like just yesterday or just last week, I was playing this 8-year-old Phantasy Star Online 2 game that I kind of like acclimated to, like, oh, that's what the game looks like. It looks nice enough, I suppose. And then you play this modern rendering of it.
And I'm sure it helps that literally the game you played before you both started New Genesis was 2002.
Yeah, literally closing the Final Fantasy XI and then booting up New Genesis, going from 2001 to 2021, or 2002 to 2021. Quite the leap.
All right, so set the stage for us. So, when this was first announced, they shared details of like, oh, there's gonna be like a more open world feel to it, like you're exploring open fields, and like this takes place like thousands of years after like the base PSO2 game, story wise. So, what's like the big key differences here compared to the old PSO2?
So first of all,
the open world structure is similar to Breath of the Wild and Genshin
Really?
Impact.
So
yes. So
basically, how about you take it away? Sorry, I don't want to talk over it. Take it away, James.
So one of the one of the major changes to the gameplay and the systems is that in regular PSO2 you gain skill points by leveling up your character, and then you can use them, just simple stuff, just regular.
I mean, it's a skill tree. Yeah.
MMO. Well, yeah, it's a skill tree. That's not how it works in New Genesis. The way it works is that you have these things dotted across the map called cocoons and towers that have challenges in them, and if you clear them, then you get. Oh, sorry. Did I sound quiet?
I just turned you up, and you sound fine.
Yeah, you're fine. You're don't mess with any of the
Don't do
settings
what I did.
because because
and I can turn you up in
Okay,
post too.
okay.
If it survives.
Yeah, I had my mic gain down a bit, so I guess because I was recording earlier.
Sounds good.
Let me put that up to 70.
Yes.
Is this better? All right. Okay, so where do you want me to?
You can just start over talking about
skill points,
cocoons and towers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the way you get skill points in New Genesis is that there's these things dotted across the map, kind of like shrines in Breath of the Wild, called cocoons and towers. And each of these has a challenge in them. The cocoons, it's going to be a short, like 2 to 3 minute long challenge. The towers are going to be longer, like half an hour. And completing them, successfully clearing them, will get you skill points. Regular cocoons will give you 1, and towers will give you 2. And that's how you get skill points to level up your classes. So it's not just by leveling, it's by exploring, finding these cocoons and towers, and
It's
clearing
almost
them.
like a shrine.
Yeah, the when you mentioned like what you do, like what do you do in these towers specifically? Is there like mini challenges in them?
It was literally like a gauntlet of platforming challenges, finished with a boss, and it took us about 20
Oh,
Yeah,
minutes to
it's
complete.
some of them are like, there was one cocoon. So cocoons are small and towers are big. That's how the beta at least has it organized. The cocoon was like, here's a pretty simple platforming challenge, no combat. It's literally just, it grades you like how many times did you fall, how many times did you have to rely on the glide technique. And then there was a couple that was like defeat 40 enemies in a quick time scale. Then a tower was a little bit more of an enemy rush followed by a boss fight.
Are all of these
They're all
single player challenges, or do you like do them in a group?
You can do them
it's 1 to
multiplayer.
4 players. As far as I can tell, though, it doesn't like scale up or down at all. So in some of the challenges, like if you're doing a boss fight, it helps you a lot to go in with a full party. Some of them, like the platforming challenge, it ends up being kind of pointless because like you could literally have like 3 players stand back and 1 player complete the challenge and like carry you. They're pretty simple. They're pretty easy. I don't know how to judge difficulty in this beta because I don't know how anything's tuned compared to like the final game. But the main thing about them is that they give you like these little optional side objectives, like do this without being incapacitated so many times, or do this under a time limit. And what we found is that they're usually like really generous. Like this tower, it said beat this in under 20 minutes, I believe. And we took our time. We lagged and we were pretty damn slow, and we did it in like 16 minutes still, or maybe 18 minutes. So they kind of scaled it so that it's pretty easy to come in under the rubric, whatever you want to call it. More generally, so yeah, one major component of New Genesis is that it has kind of like this shrine system on the overworld, which I think actually works pretty well, especially if the variety and the challenge is upticked a bit. It's hard to judge on a beta. Compared to the base game, I've always compared, since I started playing it last year when it released, Phantasy Star Online 2 is more of a hub-based game. I've seen it compared a lot to Monster Hunter, which is pretty apt. It's not a perfect comparison, but it's a good enough like heuristic. And then Phantasy Star Online 2 basically leans back from that a bit and leans back towards more of a traditional MMO setup. So you'll be in the central city, which has like a population cap of I think it's higher than the zone around it. I'm not sure. And then when you cross the threshold to go to like the field area, it'll automatically put you into like a bunch of different, like you can call them instances or blocks is the Phantasy Star term, where it kind of like populates it in different like discrete servers instances.
That's an important distinction that you mentioned. So unlike PSO2, because PSO2 your hub space is like in a space station, while this one is you're actually on the ground on like a planet, and then your hub is like now this like city, like comparable to like Neo LA and Xenoblade X. So like
you literally walk in and out of it just seamlessly. In fact, you can hop over the side of the walls too to get out onto the field. You don't have to go through the gates if you don't want to.
And they do, because I was watching your guys' stream when you were streaming it on the Discord staff chat, and I think the Sega team really made a cool visual like indication of like when you're phasing in and out of like an instance where they have like this transparent wall that you're crossing through when you get outside of the city. Like there's like this barrier that you
it's like a semi-transparent force field. It does like there is a little bit of loading, so it's not 110% seamless, but it is seamless where it's like you don't have to reach like a transition point. Like James said, you could literally just like hop over the wall and it's just kind of like drawn on the map. And so like it's kind of like it's not completely open world. It is segmented into zones, but the zones there are like, and if there is a boundary between the two zones, you can walk through it. You don't have to find like a portal or a gateway or anything like that. And then so the main difference compared to the base game is in the base game, you'd be on your hub ship is where you would interact with all the players. You'd have to form like a party or go to the gateway ship, which is kind of like how you transition to the playable zones and join a party in progress. Where here it's like it is impossible to play 100% alone. You can, even if you're not in a party, if you walk out into the field, you're going to see anywhere from a few to 32, I think is the top, or I guess 31 other players, just organically, just kind of naturally.
So it's just like more like an MMO now, more than before.
Yeah, it's not 100% of the way there, but it's pretty damn close. And then one of the things that Phantasy Star Online 2 did is when you're on like these maps that are more like a series of interconnected hallways, you might run into these things called emergency trials, where a boss shows up or a mob of enemies, or sometimes it's a little bit more elaborate, like a downed ship you have to protect, where they still use the same conceit here, only they play more like Final Fantasy XIV Fates or Guild Wars 2 dynamic events, where like it'll be like there's a boss here. Do you want to go help the other players fighting it? And you don't have to be in a party with them. You just need to be in the same area of the map. And anyone who helps damage the boss will get. It's got like a lot of the modern MMO convenience where there is no kill stealing, there is no like need or greed. It's just everyone will get kind of like an automatic item or money drop for defeating the boss or
Is it one of
completing
those
the
things where
trial.
like as long as you get like a hit on like an enemy, you'll still get credit?
I think it might even be more generous than that. There were some where I was just like nearby, like just minding my own business, and it's like trial succeeded. Here's some money. I'm like, wait, I didn't do anything.
Huh.
So it is pretty generous. And I guess for anyone who's played Phantasy Star Online 2, one of its criticisms is that its itemization and its like crafting setup is really convoluted. Some people get really into it, and it makes sense like once you study it, but it is obtuse. It is kind of unforgiving. And I'm talking about like enhancing weapons and augments. And I think based on what they've shown in the beta, they've pared it down enough where it's like, okay, this is actually a system I want to engage with now without making it like trivial. So how the original game worked is that you would have like certain items with augments on them. Like let's say I use swords and I have one sword that I want to wield and two swords that I find in the field and they've got augments on them. You kind of have to go through this convoluted like transmuting system where it's like you have a percentage chance of combining all these augments onto one weapon. Only some augments transfer easily, like with a high rate of success. Some are incredibly complicated with a low rate of success. Here, how it seems to work is that all the augment drops are basically capsules. They're items in your inventory. Like I have a capsule for Might 1, and augment is like a talent, like a stat buff. And you just go to like the one vendor where it's like you can use this one place to enhance your weapons and augments. And I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but it's straightforward, it's simple. It still like requires you to get some resources out in the field. Like I had to go back and say like, oh, I specifically need more of this item. Let me go out and do some trials and get it. So it's not like it comes free, but it just makes a lot more sense. It's like I don't have to have like these some of the fan tools that have emerged over the years for like augment calculators and like macros that have creeped up for Phantasy Star Online 2 kind of show like how stupidly involved it was. And I had some fun messing with it over the last year and trying to get like the perfect synthesis, but I'm kind of glad that it seems like that's a thing of the past. So
in the terms of this closed beta, like what kind of classes or jobs does it have compared to the base game? Is it like just only the base classes, no advanced stuff yet in it?
yeah, this is hard to judge as someone who only played the global release, but when the global release showed up last year, finally, it showed up with episodes 1 through 3. So it had some post-release classes for the Japanese side that were release classes for the global side, such as like Braver, Bouncer, and Summoner. Where in New Genesis, I think they've gone to just the basic 6 classes. It's like Fighter, Hunter, Ranger, Gunner, Force Tector. And it's kind of like when you kind of draw the line to like the standard fantasy analogs, it's like warrior, ranger, mage, healer sort of thing. Like they're pretty well worn archetypes. So
what classes are you both playing?
I was playing the Force, which is basically a mage, like cast spells.
And I was playing the fighter because my beloved bouncer is not in the game yet.
So this is great because now you can like I want to hear like how does like combat feel both for melee and range compared to the base game?
In general, movement is a lot faster, and because the zone, which makes sense, it kind of fits into the design of the game because the zones are more open. They're a lot more vertical, so you can double jump in the original game, but you jump a lot higher. You can float and glide. You can sprint a lot faster. You can cast everything like while moving.
I'll be real with you. I'll be real with you. This feels like normal to me as a bouncer main.
Yeah, so I guess I played Force in the original base game, and it's not like super stiff, but it's just a notch slower. You can't move quite as quickly. There's more spells that like root you in place or limit how fast you can move. Where here it's a lot more fluid. There's a lot more. It's just a lot more active in general.
Does it still have that system in PSO2 where I'm trying to remember the exact word for it, but like there's like a time thing where like you're like say you're a gunner and you have to like I forgot.
No.
What
there are no perfect attacks. We're basically it kind of, which I actually kind of like that in principle, because how that worked was if you wanted to swing your weapon, you would have to like if you wanted to do it most effectively, you'd have to do it with like a proper cadence. You couldn't just go like click, 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 click.
Almost like Witcher 1 in a sense.
Yeah, kind of, if you played that with a mouse. For all of you that played Witcher 1.
Yeah.
But so they took that out. There is still a little bit with like charging spells. And if you want, like for me playing as a force, you kind of want to let go of the spell the moment it charges, just to try to like get the most DPS or whatever. If you let go of it too soon, it won't be fully charged and it will be a different effect. Some of the spells actually have a slightly different effect fully charged and not, which is actually kind of cool. Like the basic fireball, if you don't charge it, will fire forward as a projectile. If you charge it all the way, it explodes right on the enemy, so you don't need to have like perfect line of sight. So there's some cool like wriggles like that.
And it feels it looks gratifying too. Like when we were talking about it on your stream, like it just even like the early game, like spells or the abilities for the melee classes, like they just look beautiful. Like it's like they're over the top, but not like crazy. It makes you wonder. Like I wonder what the advanced like spells will look like, because already just out from the get go, like these basic lightning and fire and ice spells, like they just look awesome. Like they just
right, like you fire a lightning bolt into like a field of grass or like foliage, and it all like billows away from where it lands on the ground. It's pretty cool.
Mhm.
The main drawback right now of the beta, and again, I'm trying not to judge it too much because who knows what it's going to be balanced like in the main game, is that I feel like we're doing a trial and it's like 5 levels below anyone around it, but they still have a ton of health. It just feels a little bit spongy and spammy, where it's like, okay, me and this group of 8 people that happen to be around are all fighting like this gorilla type rock monster, and he's a lower level than most of us. I know how to fight him. I've learned his attacks, and now I just kind of have to spam the spells until he dies. And then there's some like veteran creatures where it's like, all right, this is the same creatures before. They deal a little bit more damage, only they have like 3 times the amount of health. It just feels like some things take, so the action combat is fast and fluid, but then sometimes I just feel like it doesn't match quite with the pace of the fighting, or it just seems like battles drag on a bit. Like, okay, this guy's weak to ice. I've got my 2 ice spells. His weak point is behind his neck. I've learned how this fight works. I've been fighting him for 3 minutes. Is it over yet? Sort of thing. And it feels like I'm impatient, maybe, but I just feel like some of the enemies, their animations and their attacks are pretty simple, but then they have like the health pool of like a raid boss or something, or it just feels like I think they could have like maybe dialed up how dangerous they are, and dialed down their health.
So make them more aggressive in exchange for a lower health pool.
Yeah, something like that I think would be nice tweaks. It's not like a deal breaker. It's just something where it's like a little the fights drag on a little bit much.
Yeah, it's
So-
I imagine it's still a work in development. See, like I imagine they'll like release a survey and say, "Hey, what do you think?" and then whatnot. For people who are currently still playing PSO2 or have played PSO2, in this closed beta, were you able to transfer over your character from PSO2 to this new Genesis beta?
No, you're not able to transfer them over yet. One thing I actually want to say that kind of stood out to me is that there's a very like big disparity between the legacy equipment and visuals and the new
Okay.
ones, and to the point where I don't really see the point of
So
using the
what-
old stuff, because like especially the hairstyles, you look at them, like the old hairstyles
Oh,
are so blocky in comparison, whereas the new ones are like much higher fidelity.
When
It's
you talk
just
about
I don't think I really saw anyone actually using the legacy hairstyles.
when you talk about
let me put it
legacy
that
stuff
way.
that's offered in the beta, so like, is this all like do these all appear like in the character creation? It's like, oh, these like hairstyles were from the like original game, but then
They don't tell you they're from the original game, but the icon is pixelated versus the new Genesis icons,
Huh.
which are not.
how do you feel about the character customization in this game compared to the old one? Like, does it feel flexible, or like, because PSO2 is already really
It's-
good with its
it's-
character customization? So
Yeah.
is it like even more?
It's basically built on top of the existing character creation, which makes sense because again, pretty sure PSO2 already had maybe the most in-depth character
Yeah,
creator
it's
on the
still
market.
even
so.
still to this day. It seems like I guess one of the big changes to that was they allowed you to like equip more accessories to your character, I believe.
Yeah, it's in the base game. It's 4 accessories, and now it's like 8 or 12.
Oh
And
my
accessories are anything from like necklaces to hats to wings, whatever. And not only that, but for every single accessory that you place, you can like change its position on your XYZ axis. You can change its rotation. You can change its size. You can change its color. So people had already done this in like odd ways in the original game, where like they'll get an accessory that's like blowing a bubblegum bubble, and then they'll put it like the people will do silly and stupid stuff, like they'll put it on their head or on their eye instead of on their mouth, or like they'll get like something that's supposed to be like a rabbit shitting on your shoulder. They'll put one on each shoulder because they can move it around, or they'll make
Hell
one
yeah.
facing backwards on their head, or things like that.
There should
So-
be like a T-pose emote, and then you'll have when you extend your shoulders, there's just rabbits extending out.
well, some people do really stupid stuff. Like they'll make their character really short, and then they'll make like this fish accessory. It literally looks like a marlin, really big, and then they'll like cover their whole body with it, so they just look like a school of marlins like skirting across the ground. And then they'll put like a hat on it, or what. It's you can get really stupid, but it's kind of like the charm of the game, I suppose. And so people will now be able to make like a school of 12 marlins swimming across the ground for no reason. And then for the character creator, you have to pick a class, and this is, or sorry, not class, race. And the races are the same as the original game, only they've removed any stat considerations. It used to be that Newmans were slightly better at magic, and casts, which are like the robot race, were slightly more physical and with more HP. They've removed all that, so it's all purely cosmetic.
Yeah,
And not only that, but like you can pick like a male body type, but then pick like a female torso or outfit, or if you don't pick a cast, you can still pick some cast body parts.
Okay.
So like even picking a race doesn't really lock you out of that much, or if anything. So it's pretty damn open, and you can do like male body type, female voice, or typically, and they don't even avoid even using male female. They just say like type A, type B, or whatever. So it's pretty open. You can kind of do sky's the limit sort of thing.
Cool. There's like a modern MMO coming out this year. How taxing is it on your computers right now?
James and I both have pretty top of the line computers. His a little bit more than mine, and I would say generally we had a good time. When a lot of characters are on screen, like you're fighting a trial and there's like 20 players around, it does chug quite a bit.
You guys are
but
both
in the
bringing
city,
up 4K 60,
like,
right? Or just 4K in
yeah.
general?
Yeah, well, I did have it like unlocked frame rate for a bit, but then I realized no, it's like hardly ever going above 60 FPS at max settings. I'll just cap it at 60. I feel like I should stress to people listening, it's not just pretty top of the line. Like Brian has a 3090, I have a 6900 XT, so that is top of the line.
Well, I'm okay with that, because if this game is going to
Right.
have a several year long tail, like let's say it lasts 8 years, like the base game, then obviously within 4 years, like modern hardware at that point will be better suited to handle it. I wish I could be more like I've heard a lot of people who are trying to play it at 1080p or 1440 having a lot of issues with like server lag and top of like frame lag because it doesn't perform that well. So it sounds like it's a bit uneven, but leaning better than worse.
Yeah, it's a closed beta, so hopefully more
Yeah.
optimizations are on the way and in the final release as well. But I think the big takeaway is you're gonna have to either have a next generation Xbox device or a pretty beefy computer to get somewhat good performance out of this, unless you just want to try to dial everything to low and hope for the best if you have a dated machine.
I think the best way to solve this, from my ignorant, uninformed point of view, is that if there was like a setting to like call or limit how many other player models you saw, 'cause that's when it really chugs, when the game is trying to render like 20 other people all casting spells and abilities. So if there was a way to just say like only show me the people in my party, or something like that. But yeah, it's if you're not interested in Phantasy Star Online 2, sorry for going on so long about it, but I guess I don't usually usually whenever a beta tells me that there is no carryover, I usually like dip my toes in. I'm like, all right, I've seen it, I've had enough. That's kind of how I felt. It's a different style of game, but with Baldur's Gate 3, I played through the beta once, or the early access once, but since there's no carryover on that, I'm like, all right, I've seen enough. I don't want to play anymore. Where this game, I'm enjoying it enough where I'm like, you know what, I'd rather be doing that right now instead of the podcast. That's only half true, but I'm having a good time.
It looks like can't be stressed enough. Like it looks gorgeous. It's a very visually impressive game. When I was watching their streams, even I was like, wow, these environments are really cool. Like I like one of the big early showcases of the visuals in this game is you're like in this like night forest at night, and then there's like sakura trees spread around the map, and then you're fighting this like big beast creature with kind of like tentacle hair flowing through its head, and then like when it glows in the dark as it's about to attack you, and then you're like right by you're fighting like in this spring, and then you see the reflections reflect off of that light that it's coming off of it. It's like, wow, that's crazy. That looks really, really good.
And the particle effects are nice. Like the most obvious one is whenever you sprint, like there's these blue, like you're sprinting with like jet boots, like there's these blue particles.
They look like
flowing backwards
sprinklers
behind your heels.
under me.
Yeah. And then like if you fire a fireball, there's like a little bit of global illumination that it'll like light up anything that it travels past. So it just looks nice. Which comparing a lot of stuff in the original game, obviously it had to run on Vita at some point, so it doesn't always look that nice.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see, because by all accounts, just like if you separate it from the main as a Phantasy Star Online 2, like to me, this is the next big step for just Phantasy Star Online in general. If they could have called this Phantasy Star Online 3, and I'd be like, I would have believed it, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
so I have never played another Phantasy Star game, and I saw some people asking like, does this go back to the roots of the original like single player Phantasy Star? Or is it like 110% anime still? And it's still 110% anime. I have a group of friends that endearingly call it Weebs in Space. This is still Weebs in Space. This is Weebs in Space too. So if you don't like the tone or the art style of the original game, this is just that at a higher level.
There's a lot
Even
of
the original games have art style too. I mean, in the Genesis, you can actually see the anime drawings of the characters.
Yeah, I think some people, like, you know, who enjoyed the past games, like they like the more grounded feel of it. Like you gotta admit, like PSO2 really ramped it up, especially when they tried to do like a tie-in in one of the episodes of the current anime and whatnot. It's just, it kind of got out there, but you know, I'm really excited to see like the potential of this game. Like what will this game look like, you know, how, later down the line, and like higher levels, what the encounters look like, and just it's cool. It's really cool. I'm really glad that Sega's really committed to Phantasy Star Online right now.
And it's like, it'll be interesting to see something like when it actually gets into something that has some real challenge to it, because everything right now is pretty casual and bite-sized, which is fine. Like that's exactly what the beta should be.
Yeah, there's like the level cap is like at 10 right now, right? Or something like that.
15, but yeah. Okay. It's been really exciting. I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm looking like, I'm already kind of like, geez, when is this game coming out? Because I'll have to like set aside some time. It'll be weird to play through this not at the rapid, condensed pace of the global Phantasy Star Online 2, which had to fit like 8 years of stuff into one, or 7 years of stuff into one. So
that's still insane to me, man. That's God bless your soul and all the people who were able to somewhat keep up with that last year. James, do you have any final thoughts on the new Genesis beta?
Not much really. I mean, there's so little content to actually like go through. Like we basically did the majority of it last night. It's fun. I do wonder exactly how much content's going to be available in the game when it launches, because there is like a decent amount of the map that's like kind of blocked off from you already, but you can't exactly zoom it out. So I don't know how much of the map that's visible we can actually go to, if there's anything outside the map right now that we're going to be able to visit or whatnot. I don't know. And what's the end game going to be like? I'm not exactly complaining, because it's still probably going to be like 50 plus hours of content at launch, which is perfectly fine for me. But I'm sure for people that have been playing PSO2, which has a metric ton of content, it's going to be a bit of a what's the best way?
It'll be a bit.
It's going to be something to get used to.
How long does this closed beta last? Like when's the end date for it?
It's like tomorrow afternoon at the time of recording.
I-
So if you're listening to
yeah.
this, it's probably already closed, sadly, unless you're like listening to it as soon as it goes up. So yeah, it started on Friday North American evening to Sunday North American evening. So
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really need to get a better video card. That's what I'm saying. That's what it looked like. That's what it
that's the
sounded
main
like.
takeaway.
Yeah, I need to get a new video card, and somehow I'm gonna have to try to find one.
All right, let's change gears because another game, anticipated title, had a beta access period this weekend. So Josh, tell me about the second time you've been able to dip your toes into Guilty Gear Strive.
Yeah, they did another one after they announced the delay a few months back due to the feedback of the last open beta. They wanted to delay it to work more on their online lobbies because people have been very down on the state of the Guilty Gear Strive online lobby situation. With a weird Habbo Hotel esque art style, and then like the way that it functioned wasn't really great. This is we got a new look into the updated online lobby system. They're still carrying on with that like aesthetic. But the main like change from it right now is they've kind of reverted the structure back to how it was in Guilty Gear Xrd, the previous Guilty Gear game. And how it worked was for anyone who played either that game or even played like Blaze Blue Tag or Dragon Ball Fighters. Like in those games, you had like this little chibi avatar that would go around in 3D spaces, and then there'd be these arcade cabinets that they sit down in, and then they wait for other people to sit down at the other arcade cabinet and they fight. So that's the way it is in Strive now, where you still have these rooms that you go in that still like you still operate them from 2D left to right with this Habbo Hotel aesthetic. But now there are like these dual stations littered around all these rooms. They're kind of like poles with like a table on them, and then so you would access one of them, and then you would wait for someone else to access the other end of it, and then you guys would fight. Previously, it was just like, oh, take out your weapon on this create a character that your avatar that you made, and then another person would just go up to you and take out their weapon, and you guys would fight, and you could do it anywhere. And it's like it was a real mess. So this is a little bit better structured than that. It's still not aesthetically pleasing, but it's still prone to failure because it's a public open beta that anyone could download. So they still have like network issues here and there, but it's overall somewhat more smooth than the last open beta. They added a rematch button after fights. Now you can play up to a total of 3 times against the same opponent, win or lose. Now, so that really helps get games going and more consistently and whatnot. So that's the big change. Obviously, there are a lot of the balance has been changed. There's just a big damage nerf to everyone all across the board, and there's like not a lot of crazy like 80% life bar combos like in the last open beta. So a lot of characters have had to like readjust their game plan. There are some, a lot of people's combos have been changed. The properties of their moves have been changed in a way that like it feels less flexible than the last one. But there's still a beta in a beta state. The final release isn't out for like 4 to 5 weeks as of this recording. So it's hard to really say where things are gonna fall once the final release goes. But they also allowed people to play Anji and Ino now in this beta. So this is the first time people got their hands on them after they've been announced. It seems like at the moment, Ino seems to be a pretty good character from where she's at right now. Ino's the witch with a awesome big red witch hat and uses a guitar as a weapon, and it's she has all that good stuff. Anji right now is in a really weird position. I know, but George was asking, is like, what happened to Anji? Like, yeah, Anji is a character who's been in past Guilty Gear games. The last time you saw him was in Accent Core plus R and whatnot. So it's been quite a while since we've seen Anji in the new Guilty Gear game. He has glasses. He has 2 fans that he uses as a weapon, and a lot of his game plan is he has like these these moves where he has guard points where like he'll do the move, and if you attack him during that move, he'll like guard point through it, and then like he can like in theory, damage you out for punishing or punish you from like doing that attack and hitting that guard point. And the other big thing about him, he has this move called Fujin, and Fujin is basically he thrusts his fans forward like in front of him, and off of that move, he has 4 different follow-ups. He can either jump into the air and like throw down projectiles, or he can do a little hop move forward, or he can do a low sweep, or he can do an overhead attack with his fans after it. In the previous games, George, like when he was in Accent Core, this Fujin attack, when he thrusts his fans forward, even if it whiffed the opponent, even if it didn't hit the opponent, you could still do the follow-ups after it.
Right.
In Strive, that Fujin has to hit in order to do the follow-ups. You can't just do the follow-ups freely now.
Right,
that Fujin has to hit the opponent, whether they block or not. But that's kind of the big thing that Anji players miss. And like he feels very, I don't know, he's in a weird state right now, but it's hard to say, it's hard to judge where he's going to be like in the final release or launch date of this game. So right now, Anji is like both Anji look visually great, but Ino right now out of them two seems to be the big winner, because she kind of got to keep a lot of her tools, which are a nightmare to deal with. I'm still playing Nagori Yuki, the one of the new characters in Strive, along with Giovanna. But I've been kind of learning more and more about what that changed with him and whatnot. A lot has changed with him actually. But I've done well enough in the beta, even though the beta has only been up for like a day and a half. Like last night, I got the Celestial floor, which is the best of the best. That's right. So
how long did you keep that?
Well, Josh, are you still in the Celestial floor now? What floor are you on right now?
I think 9 at the moment, but I got up to the Celestial floor. I got up there. I was thinking about just never touching the beta again after getting that.
You flew too close.
All right.
I got up.
So what do you think, Shao? Should we believe him?
I have photo evidence. I did it.
What is it? They haven't announced Johnny yet for Guilty Gear, have
no,
they?
Johnny's not in the launch roster of Strive. Maybe in the DLC pass, they haven't shown off any of the characters as DLC.
Where's Sin? Give me Sin. That's all I want.
But
Guilty Gear game, Johnny is always the broken god tier character that will destroy any opponent. Like if it's
no,
look, that's only because the Guilty Gear god is a Johnny man.
That's true.
Even in Action Core, Johnny is still god tier.
Johnny's pretty good.
It doesn't matter what.
There's been versions of Guilty Gear that Johnny wasn't like the greatest, but he's still like.
Maybe what is it? Zato, Eddie,
yeah, it's weird.
But
like Zato's like not that great in this beta, to be honest. It doesn't seem like it, at least, but we'll see. I don't know. Who knows how the final release will shape up?
Maybe just with the gameplay changes, I guess. I mean, in the old one, he's always like the character that has all the trap setups, and once you get everything set up,
man, you're talking about
right?
Testament, man. Fuck Testament. But who knows?
Is Kai still like pretty basic?
Yeah, Kai's still, he's probably one of the most consistent like Guilty Gear characters. He still has like most of his tools. He's this plan is fairly straightforward. Learning him is relatively simple. So yeah, Kai's still a solid character all around. I think the threats of this beta at the moment are, I think Ino is really good. Mei is just really annoying to fight against. She has a lot of really, it's kind of weird. Like even though her damage was nerfed, she still has a lot of her nasty like setups and whatnot. It's not it's so annoying. I think Soul is also he's quote unquote in a good spot. He's a solid character, but like his game plan is so basic at the moment. Like it's kind of he's solid. Like there are definitely more interesting iterations of Soul in the past compared to this beta. He's too straightforward, I think. But
I'm still having PTSDs from fighting Order Soul from Axe and Cord, like the super boss at the end when you fight.
Order would be cool.
Order Soul would be cool, but like his game plan would be very weird for Strive's engine, because for people who don't know, Order Soul is basically a separate version of Soul. It's kind of like Evil Ryu, but not really. But
Young Goku.
Yeah,
Basically, when he was still working
Right.
for the Order, and so he has like a different outfit and a different moveset, and they made him the final boss in one of the game as like a, not like a final boss, but like a secret final boss. If you play the whole game without continuing, it's
Yeah,
like,
he's
oh,
like-
this is Drew.
Yeah, he's a younger
New final
iteration of
boss.
Soul, and like his whole mechanic was like he has these charge levels. He can go like he can actually like go to like power up like Dragon Ball style to like charge level 1, charge level 2, charge level 3.
Ultimate Gohan.
And then like he a lot of his moves consume this charge meter. So like obviously the more resources you have, the better his offensive assault will be, because now he has a lot of this meter to like expand for his assault. So like Order Soul would be, it'd be kind of interesting to see him here, but I don't know. I'd have no idea who I'd want in.
I think people want like new characters. They don't want like
Sin!
kind of like costume
I want
swap
Sin!
characters.
Sin
all I
would be
want.
weird because Sin is weird because Nagori Yuki is basically reverse Sin, except I don't know, he feels harder to control.
Give me normal Sin.
Well, I always been a May main and a Dizzy main in Guilty Gear.
Well,
series, so.
no, you should rejoice then. May is really fucking good right now, but
I haven't touched the beta yet, so but I'll give it a shot. When
I
it comes to
kind of want to
PC.
see. I don't know, maybe Justice.
I don't like to beta test fighting games. I mean, you get like a feel for a character, but it's like once the real game comes out, your character plays nothing like the
Well, I
beta,
mean, like a
right?
lot of
So-
concepts still apply, right? Like when I'm talking about like Nagoriyuki from the previous open beta to this open beta, like a lot of his like routes that I'm doing are still fundamentally the same, but my game plan and what I choose to combo into is sort of different now. But like learning that muscle memory and like getting a familiarity of like his playstyle, like for me, like I think I'm better equipped to like understand what his like final iteration will be at the launch date of Strive. It's not like oh my gosh, what am I doing with this brand new character? It's like, oh, okay, I know how his mechanics work. I know like what goes into what generally, and whether those things will change like create like in a crazy fashion, I don't know, but I can't imagine it'll be too different. Like for a lot of my changes for me is like, oh, this certain move, its damage is way nerfed, like it doesn't do that much damage anymore, but it has like these different properties attached to it, like it's more practical now in most situations, or like this move, like I can only combo for this move now, and if I counter the opponent's attack. So it's like, okay, now I just have to think about pushing out this move in like opposition to whatever they're gonna throw out. So it's not like something that's foreign to me. It's like it's just adjusting my game plan here and there.
So when does this game release?
Next month.
June
We know?
something, yeah.
Oh,
like,
so pretty soon.
Same as Rift Apart, I believe.
was it June 11th? I forgot the exact date
I
already.
think so. Or maybe it's later. It's definitely June though.
Yeah, unless they decide to delay it again after survey results.
No.
Who knows? It's gonna be. I have no idea where the survey results are gonna be for this open beta. Besides, like, your online lobby is still bad.
So we're 50 minutes in, and we've talked about 2 games. Really, very good. Par for the course.
2 games that aren't even
Yeah,
out
2
yet.
betas of games. I guess we'll just go with George. So you haven't been partaking. You played the last Guilty Gear beta, but you haven't played this one yet.
No, I haven't had the time yet.
So what have you been playing in the last 7 days?
So I think I'll start with the more exciting one. We were given a chance to play a couple of hours of Scarlet Nexus for a preview. And even though I wasn't interested in it before, like it was like completely, it wasn't something I was going to play. I hadn't watched many of the trailers. I'd completely written off, to be honest. I went ahead and did the preview, and it like completely changed my mind. It's difficult to explain why, but I don't know. Just I guess just getting
So
a chance.
Scarlet
to,
Nexus is the Bandai Namco game from the God Eater team that was originally unveiled, I believe, E3 2019 on the Microsoft stage.
I think so.
No. It was unveiled not that long ago, really. I believe it was like last May when Xbox had some event.
Oh, the next gen one. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm confusing my Microsoft events. Oh, right.
I think you're thinking of Tales of Arise.
Okay, yeah. For some reason, they keep inviting these big anime properties onto their stage, but they end up being multi-platform. Okay, yeah, but I feel like when it was first announced, it was kind of like not a ton of excitement for it. But then they've kind of like shifted their marketing a bit. They've introduced a new playable character. They've really kind of tried to nail down like the interesting premise and all that, and obviously given us the opportunity to preview it hands-on even. When in the recent years, it's always been hands-off previews, which end up being kind of like, couldn't this just be a trailer or whatever? So if I don't know anything about this game, because I know very little, like what is Scarlet Nexus?
So we were having a discussion for the podcast. Actually, I've found it difficult to sum it up, but Josh and Adam both said that brain punk is a very good way to describe it.
That's their words, not ours.
I'm about to say, like, did we come up
it
with
works,
that?
though. It works. No. But this is what's so weird for me. Usually when I'm like interested in a game, like even the slightest, I'll try and find out like as much about it. But with Scarlet Nexus, I went in like completely blind. But I guess the gist of it is that you play as either Yuito or Kasane, and they are like literally on their first day of being OSF soldiers. And OSF soldiers are like, they're like soldiers that use like psychological powers to defeat these creatures known as the Others. And it's set in like futuristic.
They move.
Yeah. So you both of the main characters have the same ability. They both have psychokinesis, so they're both like, I would call it telekinesis. Weirdly, like I kept thinking this when I was writing it up. I was like, no, I would call this telekinesis, but you know, whatever. And yeah, through situations that I won't go into, like for spoilers, they run into each other on their first day, and they're like instantly kind of like almost connected in a way. I feel like that's going to be one of the main threads, because Yuito's reason for joining the OSF is that he was saved by someone from the OSF that looks like Kasane. So he sees her and he's like, you look familiar. Like, you know, who are you? And that's like the main mystery so far. And the rest of it, this is what pleasantly surprised me. The rest of it is like really, really comfortable. Like it feels, in my preview, which you can check out on the site, I said that it feels like an anime that's like already like started. It feels like it's like a really developed world.
Which is really ironic because there's actually going to be a TV anime for this game starting on like July 1st.
And I'm going to watch it. Like from the game, like it seems like it fitted perfectly. So like one thing that I like is when you go into a game and the world has its rules, like it's already set. Like you feel like you're going into something that already exists, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So going into Scarlet Nexus, I could tell like a lot of time has been put into how this world actually works. Like these characters feel like, you know, they don't just feel like blank slates. They don't just feel like they're here and like they're only just existing. Like they feel like they have a history to them, and all of the characters just like meld really well together. Like it's surprisingly jokey as well. Like there's a really charming tone to like about 80% of it. Like they're all getting on. They're all quite funny. I think one of my main misconceptions and why I wasn't interested in the game at all was it reminded me so much of was it Code Nexus? Is that the one?
Code Vein, I think.
Code Vein. That's it. Obviously not Code Nexus.
It's the same. Isn't it the same group making that? Because that's the same team, I think. Obviously, I don't know. Like these teams don't have rigid boundaries. So, but
I assume there's a little
but it has some common talent behind it.
Yeah. So I played Code Vein, and I really didn't like it like at all. It really, like, I like the graphics, but the game itself I just did not gel with at all. I didn't think it was a good like Souls-like at all. I didn't really like it. I don't know if any of you have played it. have any
Played a
strong
little.
opinion. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
played it pre-release and
I've played a couple of hours. So I also played it pre-release. I think most of us played a bit of it at like E3, like
18, maybe 17. I don't
was it?
remember
Yeah,
because it
2018.
went on hiatus for a bit. So it's like, how long was that hiatus? I don't remember. But yeah, I played it and I hated it, so I never bought it. Like,
yeah,
I
there's
was
like
like, that wasn't any good.
if you
If you liked Code Vein, I'm
It's-
sorry. I just didn't mess with it.
the full game is a lot better than that like preview demo version that was at E3 so many years ago, but it's still not great. I'll
yeah,
just say
and
that.
that was my thinking going in, and the character customization was really good if I remember. But for some reason, weirdly for me, not researching it or looking it up at all, I assumed that Yuito and Kasane would just be like these blank slates. I thought I'd go in, just like, you know,
You're like
Yuito.
silent protagonist or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought it'd be. And then within like the first 10 minutes, Yuito is talking about like his reasons for being there in a very like anime way, like very like, I will do this, I believe in myself, that sort of thing. And then after the first mission, he's joking around with, I forget his name now, but he's joking around with like his best friend who's also just joined, and they're like talking about like they're both like joking around, they're both like, let's go get our fortune told, and they seem like really good friends. And I was just there, I was sat there doing this preview, and I was like, wow, like these characters are actually like, they have character. And it just, I don't know why it surprised me so much, but knowing nothing about it, it was just like the first thing that drew me to it. And anyway, so to move on from story stuff, because it is still too early to tell, but that is my strongest impression from the game so far. I really like these characters. I really, really like this world. I just think it's really interesting. So
I remember several months ago when Adam had a hands-off preview, or maybe it was just a press release talking about the enemy design. It was designed from a creator outside of games who was more of a novelist, and like these enemies are very unnerving. Like, it's like, what is it supposed to be?
Yeah.
It's not just like lions and tigers and beasts. It's supposed to be like these otherworldly things. I guess that's why we call them the other, right? And when you say like it has a very jokey, vibey tone, but it got this bleak environment and this sort of like, this is the conflict that they're put up against. Just in principle, that sounds like it could be like a pretty exciting duality there.
I think it's also important that you mentioned that too, because of like this already established camaraderie between like, you know, his friends or previous friends that you don't know about. And like that's also that ties into a system of this game, because as you're exploring around these levels, it's kind of like a third person action game, or akin to like if Code Vein was to like Souls like games, this would be like kind of Devil May Cry-esque.
yes, yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So when you're exploring around, you have like two other party members, and you can actually like, I think, borrow their skills, or like they put like some skill on you to enhance whatever you're doing. And then as you to power them up or strengthen them, you have to go through like these almost Persona-esque like social link events with them, I think.
Yeah. So I got a little taste of that. And now I think there's actually like quite a lot to talk about. But the one I got a taste of is with Kasane. So it's like a tutorial one. You do get forced to do it, but you get to borrow her power, but because her power is the same as yours, you just get like it's a really OP version of like psychokinesis. So instead of just lifting some stuff up, you suddenly like you do like this like whirlwind of stuff, and it killed everything in one hit. And I was like, whoa, this is really cool. So I presume they won't be united much, because it's like it would break it a bit. But
I think that's also cool too that you mentioned that, because like a lot of like the early footage we saw of Yuito, like he seems to be like a more melee oriented. He has like a sword, but he can still throw stuff around, but they're smaller stuff. And then what you're describing with Kasane, she seems to be more like mid range or far range oriented, and she's really all in on like range attacks and as a trade off, even though like you're not up close doing like, you know, up close like melee damage, she has like more powerful like telekinesis or psychokinesis tools to like lift heavier stuff onto opponents. And I'm not sure. I'll have to, like, when you're starting up this game, you either have the choice of either choosing Yuito's story or Kasane's story, right?
So that's another thing that I didn't get, is that I thought it would be like other games where they would just like gender swap. So they're like, oh, same story, but maybe, you know, a different voice or like a slight different perspective, whatever. But no, like they are completely different campaigns from the looks of it. Like the way that their stories go when you're like, when I didn't play as Kasane, I didn't have the chance, but when I was playing as Yuito, like Kasane is always up to different stuff. She's in a completely different team to you. She's in like a completely different area. So I have to assume that it's going to be a completely different campaign as well. Maybe sharing some levels, but like going about it differently. So like that's really exciting as well.
Do you think they're going to do the classic thing where like to get the true end of this game, you have to complete both routes and then they'll both merge into one final?
Yeah.
I'll be disappointed if they
Yeah, I
don't
think
for
so.
some reason. Like I want to hear. I want there to be like the route C or the third part where once you it's like this is such a dumb comparison, but like Sonic Heroes, you have to play through all the different Sonic friends in order to get the true ending.
I was gonna say Sonic Adventure 2.
Well, our brains are just poisoned, but I hope they do that.
So I think coming away from it, I was really, really impressed with like pretty much everything. I love story, characters. I love the music's really cool. It's almost like lo-fi at some points. I think the graphics are really good. The environments are a bit bland, but like overall the graphics are nice. I think the main thing that it has to prove to me still, not that it has anything to prove to me specifically, but for me to like really, really enjoy it, is I hope the combat has a bit more depth. So it's very, very simple from what I've played. It's just like square to attack, triangle to do a move that recharges your like psychokinetic powers, and then you just have those abilities as well. And you can chain them together, you can do little combos, and it feels really good. Like it feels quite satisfying. But I really hope that they let you customize, like from the looks of it, you can customize your party at a certain point, and then you get to choose like what abilities you would take on because they're all linked to one person. But like I didn't get any of that in the first like 3 or 4 hours. It was all chose for me. So my hope is that the further into the game, they'll just be like, yeah, take whoever you want, have whatever powers you want, like really mix it up. And if it does that, like I would be super happy because that's the powers that you get. Some of them are really fun. Like there's an electricity one that's really cool to use, but then there's an invisibility one that's like absolutely useless. So that's where my worry lies. It's not even a worry. It's like I did really enjoy what I played, and I wanted to keep playing it. Like when I got to the point where it's like you need to stop now, I was like, oh, come on, like
George,
getting good.
Please stop, George.
I'm imagining like even though this was a digital preview, like prying the controller away. George, give it up.
Can you imagine if it was a physical event? They're like just tapping on George's shoulder, like, sir,
leave me alone,
sir.
So I do want to bring up. So obviously this game releases in June, but it does have. They announced this week a demo will be available later this month. It'll be available on Xbox consoles on May 21st and PlayStation consoles on May 28th. The demo will not have any carryover to the June release, but you do get like a bonus for playing it. An attachment and a plug-in, like different equipment slots for each character, Yuito and Kasane. So,
I think it has a lot of promise. Yeah, I think it looks really cool. I agree with you, George. I really hope they really lean into like interesting like enemy encounters later on, where like, hey, to take out this enemy, you have to specifically use like this sort of power or this party member's buff to you to like take them down in interesting ways. Like I think one of the early examples of that like promise in these previews coming out is like, hey, you fling like this oil can on an enemy to drench it in oil, and then you'll use like a party member's like fire buff on your skills, and you can like set it ablaze for like a lot of damage and whatnot. And that's if they really expand on like that environmental interaction system, sort of like how like how Genshin Impact does it with like how its elemental affinities and exposing weaknesses are. I think there could be like really cool stuff to this game. I'm really interested to see like Bandai Namco's expectations of this game and how well this will like permeate like throughout its target audience, because they're really betting big on this like brand new IP, like not even just giving it like obviously a new game, but like a whole a TV anime series as well. Like
I'm hoping it does well, because it literally just took this like 2-hour period for me to go, damn it, I'm buying this game. Like, damn it, I really like this. So I just hope people give it a chance. I hope people go and play that demo.
Yeah, it's good. It has a strong first impression already. Like just that.
Yeah, definitely.
Hours in, and like it's kind of like a I don't know, a small sentiment, but I always try to root for the underdog, especially if it's like a brand new thing. And like the developers behind this game seem very passionate about it every time they speak about it too.
Yeah, that was the one thing I played, which was like very exciting. That was the first preview I've done, and then since then I've been playing and finished the original Mass Effect as part of the Legendary Edition trilogy. And
remade from the ground
holy
up.
crap, Mass Effect's awesome! Like, who would have thought that? Mass Effect's great. Everyone knows that.
Did you play the original, or is this the first time you played the first one?
This is the first time I've played the original. My brother used to own it, so I used to watch it. So some bits like ring a bell, like the intro rings a bell a bit. But I've played 2 and 3, like 2 back in the day, 3 like I think a little bit more recently. But 1 completely missed, and I feel like I was missing a piece of the puzzle in a way. Like you can totally still play it. You could totally still go through 2 and 3 and like not need 1, but like after playing 1, I'm really like, no, like 1 is really, really strong. And it's a really exciting prospect for people to have like the whole trilogy all at once. I feel like as well, I'm not the best one to say like how much the Legendary Edition like changes, because like I've never played the first, so when I got to like the Mako bits and everyone's like, oh my god, like I hate that bit, like it drives like crap. It drives fine to me. Like those bits are actually kind of fun.
Videos. Like it was pretty very janky back in the day.
Really,
so you should definitely go see like original Mass Effect Mako driving. It's even better if you're able to like get access to the original game and control it, because that is a real piece of work. I kind of, even though it's not great, it still holds like a little special place in my heart. I'm like, yeah, that was dumb.
We all suffered through it and overcame it, and we're better people for it.
Is it really? Was it really that bad?
It was pretty bad.
Anyway, I have to say it wasn't that bad. I think people kind of oversell it, but
undersell it. But think of more floaty Halo driving, like but unreliable Halo controls, and like it's somehow more floaty than
I will admit
driving.
Those bits are like they're a nice like pace breaker, but when I'd go to a new planet, it's like, okay, drive around for a bit, or like when you do a side mission where it's like go find.
It's better than planet scanning.
Oh yeah, that is true. I agree.
But, yeah, I mean, what have you been playing this, George, on what system?
The Xbox Series X. I know, I use my Xbox Series X.
Wait, but I'd say, like, is this the first time you turned it on since getting it?
Literally, yeah, genuinely the first game I've played on it.
How is it? How is it there?
Runs, really well. I've had 1 crash, and that's it. And
really well. By the way, it crashed.
Well, hey, what's better than most these days? Unfortunately,
yeah. I get Disco Elysium flashbacks. I'm like, no, but yeah, I've only had 1 crash. I haven't really had like many glitches, like a few here and there, but like nothing to ruin the experience. But I'm really impressed with it overall. Like, I feel like Mass Effect is one of those games where if we had talked about it before, like if we talked about it like 10, 12 podcasts ago, I wouldn't have given much of an opinion on it, because when I played 2 and 3, like I was kind of young, like it didn't really like strike as much of a chord with me. But going back to 1, I'm like, no, actually, I really do like love Mass Effect. So that's really exciting, and it's nice to think of the people who can play it first time.
Are you playing as a goody two shoes or as a jerk?
Goody two, like it's so this is one of those things.
I know.
Like, it's so overacted. And there are times I feel like talking about Mass Effect is really old hat now, but there are times when I choose something and it's like, oh, is he gonna answer this like sort of normally, or is he gonna start shouting and I've just chosen wrong? But it's kind of all part of the charm, isn't it? Like all the dead looks that Shepard gives. He's just like there's weird expressions and weird voice acting. Like it's all part of the charm. I love it.
How long are elevator rides in their Xbox Series X?
Like seconds. You can in Mass Effect 2 they're like pretty much instant. But in Mass Effect 1, like they just go like maybe 5 seconds at max. And if there's like a conversation in there, you can skip them now. You can't skip them outright, but you can skip like if there's like radio chatter, like talking about stuff. I always skip it. Like screw that.
I want to play.
Are you going to play through 2 and 3, or since you've already played those?
Yeah, I will. I'm on the ride now. Like, this is the first time. This is interesting to me. Like, this is the first time that I've actually had I've had Rex in my party, and like I know who he is, and he's interesting. Like, I hear like when
That's a good point. I didn't think of that, because do you get him in Mass Effect 2 if you don't have carryover data?
I don't remember. I imagine you do, but like I remember there being like this big thing that he can disappear from your party so easily.
Right,
in Mass
right.
Effect
Yeah, I forget the
that you have to have,
particulars, but
like-
yeah, that was a possibility.
Yeah, so this time I was well aware of that. I'd heard that. I was like, no, charm up to max. What's weird as well to me, thinking about it, is there are things from Mass Effect 1 that I actually really miss, like in Mass Effect 2 and 3. Like, they got rid of some stuff that actually, like, I think it's for the worse. Like, this is a really weird one, but the grenades in Mass Effect 1, I don't know if you guys can, like, picture them as I say it, but they're like frisbees. You sling them, and then you can press it to, like, do it, and that's awesome. Like, I know that's a really minor one, but it's just cool. And then being able to crouch whenever I want, like, they've redone the cover system, so that, like, now you just kind of, like, walk up to cover and you will take cover, rather than pressing a button. And then going from that to Mass Effect 2, like, I'm like, there's too many button presses now. Like, it worked really well as auto cover. It's still not like. Then I think of all the problems I had with auto cover, and I'm like, maybe it's a blessing that it's gone. But it's so weird to think like the first entry like did like quite a lot right. 2 and 3 are definitely better. Like, I wouldn't sit here and say the first is the best. I think that's kind of crazy talk. But
I know a lot of people back in the day really didn't like the change to like ammunition to like thermal clips.
yes,
Mass
I hate
Effect
that.
2.
Yeah, I hate that. That's another
Wait,
one. Thank
which
you
one
for
do you
reminding
hate?
me.
1 or 2?
The actual, like, actually having ammo, like, not thinking about ammo just makes you a bit more experimentative with your weapons. Like, you're just a bit more free fire. Like, if you're just having to wait for it to cool down, like that's great. But then going to
So you like it? So you like it better than 2?
No, I like it better in 1.
Yeah, he like.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
That was poorly explained on my part, but
Yeah,
yeah,
like you said you don't like ammo, and that was in 1, and then but you're saying you prefer it. I don't know.
Wait, no,
I'm lost.
Mass,
I'm lost.
yeah,
What are you trying to say?
right. I'll do it again. Mass Effect 1 doesn't have ammo, right?
No.
From when
right?
I was playing it, I'm soldier class, so like mine are all like completely cooldown based. All of the weapons I use are always cooldown. And then going into Mass Effect 2, I did as a soldier again. Like, you get ammo there.
Okay.
Is that
Well,
changed
it's because first of all, like I wonder like if it was changed for the remaster, that'll have to like be like and failing memory, and then in Mass Effect 2, like they call them thermal clips, but it really is just ammo.
Yeah,
it's a way to explain why an energy weapon has ammo.
Okay.
Has like countable shots.
Yeah, because from mine, bear in mind this is like 24 hours ago. Like, Mass Effect 1 absolutely doesn't have ammo. I don't know if that changes for like if you're Vanguard or if you choose another class, but as a soldier, every single weapon I used, like every single one throughout my playtime, never had ammo. They just have like cooldown times, and I loved that. That was really cool.
Okay.
So like going into 2 is weird. Like, it's weird to have an ammo count. I like it a little less.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mass Effect's great. It really is as simple as that. It's a really good remaster. It looks great. It's a bit of uncanny valley sometimes because obviously it's a BioWare game. They have that quite a bit, but there's not really anything like Mass Effect. Like, it's really one of a kind in my opinion, and a very special set of games that is like now more special to me and like even better because of this trilogy.
I really wonder what that new Mass Effect is going to be like. Like, they're trying to, like, get interest back into the series after Andromeda, trying to excite the fan base once again. So if this is all like, hey, we're bringing back Mass Effect, and then this new Mass Effect now comes out and doesn't do all that well, what happens then again? What a weird situation.
All right, so I wanted
played-
to get the egg off her face. So Mass Effect 1, the attribute is called shots before overheat. It's basically how many times you can fire a weapon before you have to go before you go into overheat. So in neither game, it's like really ammo. It's just different ways of implementing that sort of mechanic. So shots before overheat, Mass Effect 1, and then like the thermal clips beyond that.
I was mixing it up. Got it.
All right.
I don't know.
Adam has said this on previous podcasts where it's like I love this game. I really like the series. I wish BioWare would make another hit like that. That'd be nice. But I don't know if I'm that eager to revisit it. I will probably purchase it just to have it, which might be a bit weird. Just because it's so convenient to have it. Just because coming from being an Xbox, like the reason why you played only 2 and 3 is because it was like originally on Xbox 360, and then 2 was multi-plat, and then eventually Mass Effect 1 released on Sony platforms later. The PC version was like at the origin days of the Origin store, back when it's like was awful. Maybe it's still awful. I don't know. I haven't opened it up in a while.
Wait a minute.
Because that between 1 and 2, I believe, is when the EA acquisition was. I don't remember exactly how it timed out, but basically to play through all 3 games before this month was kind of a mess. Well, there was a trilogy edition that released a bit.
And even then, you'd have to pretty much install like quite a few mods on original Mass Effect 1 to like make it look acceptable today, I guess, or at least make it work better on modern systems. But I don't know.
So yeah, it's really cool to have, and hopefully people who are playing for the first time end up feeling as strongly about it as we do, and as George ended up feeling.
George, since you have the Series X one, when it downloaded, was there a way to like for it to just download, hey, only Mass Effect 1, and then like start playing that while it's downloaded Mass Effect 2 and 3, or like did it segment up the downloads so you can like start playing the first one immediately, or did you have to wait for the whole thing to finish?
It was like 30 gigabytes to start, and then you go and it's like, okay, play Mass Effect 1, and then you have to choose to download 2 and 3.
Interesting. Okay,
it was pretty painless though. Like I wondered about this because it was like 100 gigabytes overall. I was like, oh
yeah, because that's different from how PS5 handles it. Because
really,
God forbid how Sony handles PS5. No smart delivery, dumb delivery.
I'm assuming that they make you download all 100 gigabytes.
Because it's a PS4 game, really. Yeah.
It's a PS4 game, and like to start it, it'll download like you can download like the first like 6 to 6.5 gigs, but like obviously that's not ideal.
No, not at all.
So you just basically have to wait out like the whole 80 to 81 gig download, and yeah,
screw that. Go Xbox.
I mean, yeah, they're still continue to kill it with smart delivery.
All right, for some of the people that we haven't had a lot of chance to hear from, I do know that Chow and James have both put some time into a recent release, Famicom Detective Club. And just to kind of give a little bit of a look ahead, I know that James also made both a written and video review for this, and then Chow did some guides for it. So what is Famicom Detective Club, and how did you feel about it? Let's start with James.
First off, they are not visual novels. They are.
I'm glad. I love
they
opened with that.
So Famicom Detective Club is a series that is one of the original like Japanese adventure game, like kind of text adventure games, all the way back on the Famicom disk system. And obviously, we never got those localized because the Famicom disk system never got an NES equivalent. And the second game did get an SNES remake, but it was like in 1998. So obviously that didn't get localized either because that was so late in the SNES's lifespan. But so yeah, as of today, the Switch remakes of the first 2 games have been localized. It's actually kind of crazy thinking about it, since it's been so long since the originals came out, and I don't think anyone really ever expected them to get officially localized.
So for someone who doesn't play these,
I was gonna say,
go ahead, Chow.
I was gonna say there is an English fan patch for the Super Nintendo version. But there is nothing for the original. So a lot of like story summaries for the missing hair is kind of like not out there. Like there's like hardly any information about it.
Did you play the original games or the Super Famicom version?
I played the Super Nintendo version, but I have never played the original Missing Here. I did went over and play a little bit of it after beating it, like the Switch remake, just to kind of get a feel of what's with the Nintendo version. But like, I didn't really go through the entire game.
So what is like the premise of the game? Like, what is the Famicom Detective Club?
Yeah, like I guess I was gonna say all I know about them is they were from a Smash Brothers trophy. That's their origin. For me.
Okay, well let's probably put a story premise. So in the second game, the girl stands behind. It's a prequel story. So let's start with that. You're basically this kid that ran away from home, trying to find his missing parents, and some random detective guy finds you and say, "Hey, you know what? You remind me of just myself, so I'll make you a detective." And that's
how you become a
premise,
detective.
you're a detective.
If only all of us just had a career fall into our lap like that.
And anyways, most of the game starts with like a tragedy of some sort. So the second game would start with this girl being murdered, and you're trying to figure out who's behind the murder. While the missing here is that you get called to this island from this clan. You're trying to find this missing here, so because
I'm
it's
I'm
really
sorry. I just have to say it. It's air, not here.
sorry,
Missing air.
But anyways, you go to this place and you're trying to find, you know, um, this successor to this family that's just about the like because the was it the head of this clan just passed away and they want to pass on their will to the successor, and that's basically the premise there. But what's different about that one is the protagonist starts with amnesia, so he's like he has to start from square one because of that.
So what would be like the recommended like play like what would we start first?
I would recommend with the girl stands behind just because it's more
Yeah.
easier. Because
Yeah. So people have been saying, "Oh, well, you should play it in release order," and that's fair. But it's the case where the girl who stands behind was designed to be played first. You get more out of it playing it first rather than playing it second, I'd say.
Okay.
I don't think there's any problem with the first game as like story wise. I actually do like the story of the first game, but I just think they were too faithful in this remake, and it kind of gets annoying trying to get to the next part because you'll be like you forgot to say ask one dumb question and the game won't progress because it's like, oh yeah, I didn't ask. It's like what did you do for supper today? And because of that, you didn't trigger the guy to leave, and that won't trigger the next story event. So you're like stuck in the game.
It's
What the
kind of
hell
a
am I
weird
doing
thing,
wrong?
right? Because if they like when you say it's too faithful, like what's the alternative then in that case? Because like if they change it up too much, I think that would
I think they should just like condense it. Like you should be like, if you already asked the most important questions, then the game should know that to let you progress instead of like make you stuck because you didn't ask one
and then
dumb
and like
question,
the
right?
progression of like these games like is basically like, hey, you have to go to this person, ask them these questions, and then once you like triggered, the responses to all these questions, yeah, like you'd have to go to like the next person and then go ask them this. Like it's basically like you're interacting with stuff in the right order to proceed. Essentially, am I correct?
But once you ask all the questions, and like they don't always leave, right? But if you ask the right question and you go to the next place, then it's like, oh yeah, it's like now there's an event happening, and now you
But
can
it's all done
progress,
in
right?
menus. There's not like you're not actually like controlling like a physical character like throughout a world. There's all very very menu driven.
Yeah, yeah. But like, anyways, I think they were just being too faithful, and that was the problem. But I do like the story of the first one. I really like the origin stories of the protagonist. I find it's really sad. Like this whole story is about a family trying to make a redemption arc for themselves, and everything just gone wrong from there.
And obviously like I imagine not, but previous releases of this didn't have any voices at all, so like this now.
No, and I think there's one problem with the voice acting. It's not like it's bad. I feel like if you're like really into like Japanese voice actors, it's like it kind of gives away who the killer is a lot of the time because you'd be like, oh yeah, it's like why do they have this really famous voice actor voicing this person? It's obviously like it can't be like
I'll
a
be
character.
I'll be completely honest. Just knowing that one of the important, both of these stories follow the mystery genre. You need to learn meet the killer really early on. So as soon as I met one or two of the characters in both games, it's yep.
It's the gas station
It's them.
attendant. Got it.
Yeah, it's like you wouldn't give such a famous voice acted voice this.
I guess one of the weird interesting trivia about this game is they got the original voice actress from one of the
Satellaview third game, which hopefully that gets a remake down the line.
They got the original voice actress to come back for Ayumi. She's basically the sub-heroine, kind of like there to just kind of tell the protagonist, it's give you a rundown of what happened in each chapter, right?
I really wonder who at Nintendo said, yeah, we should do this. We should definitely just remake this. And it's really cool that they did it, but I wonder what's the end game for this kind of release, because I think it's very fascinating that they brought this back.
Something I find really fascinating. It's why do if you go to the Nintendo character page, why does it tells you that Ayumi is good with Nagita? What is it? Nagita? Whatever those Japanese halberds are called.
Okay.
Yeah, it's why did they have to mention that?
Smash
It's
Bros.
There was not a single combat.
Oh no.
Can you imagine, dude? That's the reason they brought it. It's hey, Ayumi is in Smash Brothers now, and she's really good with Nagitatas.
It's they have to mention that in their webpage. It's there was not a single battle scenes with her in the game, and they never even mentioned she was skilled in combat.
I wonder if there's supplementary material, side material that's released only in Japan, obviously. That's oh, I guess.
So who has a better chance of getting in Smash Bros, her or a non-sword wielding Fire Emblem character?
Ooh,
that's a tough choice.
Still spurned by no Hector or Ephraim.
And how what are the prices for this game? Are these two separate games on Nintendo Switch? Are they bundled together? What's this?
You can buy them separately.
Well, it depends. In Europe, you have to buy them together, I think, depending on the country. But for North America, so in the US, it's $35 separately for each of them, but the second one you buy will have a $10 discount, so it's $60.
Are these digital only, or is there physical release? Okay,
they're digital only.
It's physical in Japan, but at the collector's edition, though.
As part of the coverage for this game, you did a video review for it, which is always kind of cool that I want to make sure to highlight and kind of give a shout out for.
That I did. I've now done the last 4 video reviews.
Oh, now I feel bad. Guilty.
Hey man, it's hard having a full-time job, and then balancing that. So don't beat it yourself up too much. It's
before the end of the year, I will do one. I don't know what the.
I'm going to ask you: has anyone watched the Haruhi Suzumiya anime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember there's this episode where they go to this beach and there was a murderer and it's hey, you're the murderer, and it tries to that episode kind of reminds me of the first game for some reason.
I honestly don't see it.
You don't see it? It's I don't know. The first game kind of has an episodic format where someone gets killed each episode, and they're oh yeah. It's what are we gonna do about it?
Did they change up obviously other than the graphics and the voice performances? Did they change any core fundamental things from the original release in this one, or is it just it's exactly?
For the most part, it's the same thing. There's I'll be honest. When I was playing through the first one, I kind of utilized a Japanese guide for the original just to help me through it. And there are some small changes, but nothing major. It's maybe an additional dialogue option you need to choose here or there. For the most part, it's exactly the same, with one exception, and it's just based off framing. In the original, there were 6 chapters. In this one, there's 11. And it's not that the actual content's different. It's just the way that it's separated into chapters. It's different.
Well, it's basically when you get to chapter 5 in the original game, you basically have to switch the disc because those Famicom disc system has 2 sides to the disc, right? So
chapter 3.
You switch to disc 2.
Well, technically, the way it works in the original release is that the second disc for the game was released a month later.
Okay, interesting. Are there any?
So I guess it was like a kind of communal thing where it's like for a month people are like, "Oh man, I wonder what's going to happen
that's weird
next."
to think about, but are there
Probably keep
Are there any
suspense, I
other
guess.
like deep cuts in Nintendo's history that you would now want to see like make a comeback like this out of nowhere? Like, is there any
Quick,
other?
scour through the Smash Bros. Trophy list.
I want Captain Rainbow to come back.
Okay, was that Nintendo?
Time twist.
Who's that yellow
I
giant?
don't know what.
Bring him.
It's Nintendo.
Bring him back.
I mean, got all that controversy because of the Birdo event in that game.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I want Captain Rainbow to come back.
And like Little Mac's fat in that, isn't he? I think I know what you mean.
Anything more to add on Famicom Detective Club from any of you?
I don't think we can add too much to it
Yeah.
without like spoiling the story.
Yeah.
Because it's mostly we're talking about the story here. But
Yeah.
I don't think the first game was terrible. I just think it was just too faithful as a remake. It's like it suffers kind of like the same problem with like Fire Emblem was Echoes, where you're like, oh yeah, those desert maps are awful, but yet we still put them back in the game just like the way they were, and maybe it's better if they can just rework that, but
The balancing
I don't
act
know.
between being faithful and being like, could this been improved on?
Okay, so I
Go ahead.
will spoil one thing. They did not need to leave the button in. They just did not.
I assume you need context
yeah.
for that to make sense.
I
but
I don't know if
will
that's a
roll with it.
spoiler.
Basically,
need
okay,
context.
so this is out of context. It doesn't really have anything. Basically, there's a point in the game where you need to scour the cliffside for a button, and it's not like when you mouse over it, it'll change the cursor to let you know that you're selecting the button. No, you need to see the button and click when you're on top of it, and it's super tiny, and it's like only like
Hell
a couple
yeah, I love
pixels.
I'm getting Metroid Other
It's
M
just-
first
I don't know
person
how people
scouting
can
segment.
find that in the original game. In the original game, that pixel is like it's like so freaking hidden.
There's
I don't
like
know how
one red
people would know
pixel
that
and
in
a
the
sea
original
of whatever
game.
the cliffside looks like. Find it. Have fun. This is
Yeah.
gameplay. This is what counts for gameplay in the
I just imagine
20 years ago.
the SEO chart for that game like now just like what did people like just search for this thing? It's like and you see like just random word button at the like the top.
Where's the button?
Like I don't know, like how would people find this in the
So-
original
okay,
game? There's
so-
no clues. Also, the main character's like, oh yeah, it's like, I think I know.
All right, so
something's
Chow
fucking down
posted
there.
for us to see on our end an image from the original game of where to see the button, and it's circled for me. And I'm like, "Are you sure it's there?" I don't see it.
Yeah, I have no
We'll
idea.
throw this in. We'll throw this in the site post.
Yeah, we should
So-
put this in the side post for sure. But like for people who are listening to this audio only, it's basically like a cliffside of like just a whole row of grass sprites all over the screen and whatnot. And then the little circle is like at the top left of it, and it looks very identical, nearly identical to every other like cliff side sprite on this screen. And it's like, I don't get it. How do you know there's a button there? There's no way. But
I think someone just arbitrarily overlaid a red circle on this unassuming image.
I mean, the remake did it better. He's like, oh, I think I see something glowing there. Then you see like a tiny
definitely
spark.
check out the side post for this episode if you want to get just see how ridiculous
The mystery of the hidden button.
Yeah, it's, really cool.
All right, so we haven't heard a lot from Adam yet. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to round out this section?
No.
All right, we'll leave it at that. And I just want to make
Okay.
sure I give everyone a chance to speak up.
More seriously,
Josh.
I just I'm the game I am playing I cannot talk about.
I feel
yes. And then Josh, have you played anything else this week other than the Guilty Gear beta?
I'm in the same boat as Adam.
Oh, I see. All right. Speak now or forever hold your peace. we'll move into the topical section. We already talked about on the site side, obviously the Famicom Detective Club review, the Scarlet Nexus preview. James also did do the Pokemon Snap review that just went up, I think, yesterday, maybe the day before. We talked about that kind of at length of the podcast last week, so I don't think there's really a whole lot to add. Stop me if that's not true.
No, it's basically the same. You basically, if you listened to the podcast last week, you pretty much listened to me realizing what the final score was probably going to be.
So it sounds like a fun game that just has a little bit too much like grind and padding. So give that a read. All right. Oh, before we move on to the news, one last thing is that Alex Donaldson has been going bananas, writing a whole bunch of Mass Effect guides for romance, for carryover, for other tips and tricks. So if you're playing Mass Effect, I'm sure there's something on the site that will be useful to have up
What's old is
on
new.
another monitor or on your phone. Yes. All right. And then this is something I'll have to rely on James for, because the big news from yesterday, at the same time that the Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis beta kicked off, was Final Fantasy XIV Fan Fest, with a big revelation about the release date and all the information pertaining to the upcoming Endwalker expansion. So, just take it away, because I know bits and pieces, and I learned through osmosis, but you are the one that is in the know here. What did you think about it?
Awesome all around. We got confirmation that the other genders for the Rothgar and Viera race are being added to the game right now. So basically, we got confirmation that male Viera are going to be added to the game, with Endwalker, with female Rothgars coming later. Maybe not with this expansion, maybe with the next one, but they have confirmed that it will happen. So that's nice for people
there we go.
to hear about that.
Finally,
I think
confirmed.
Well, Bunny Boys actually, but
it's already Cat Boys.
All right.
Yeah, the big thing out of everything else, and I think not enough people are talking about this, the biggest news that came out of this FanFest so far is that Oceania is finally getting a data center. So the Australian players that have had to choose to play on one of the other three regions, Japan, Europe, or North America, finally can play on a data center that's native to them.
That's pretty big.
So they're not stuck with like really high paying.
Yeah, I saw some mention of this on Twitter from some mutuals, and they were very, very, very happy about that.
And of course, they're offering free data center transfers to the new Oceania data center, which makes sense. So that's great. I don't actually have any mutuals that are like in Oceania that play 14, but it's great for everyone.
It's good on
that
principle.
does, because obviously, also, we got the confirmation for the next melee DPS job that's sharing the slaying set for armor pieces. So basically, it's going to use many of the same armor pieces that Dragoon currently does. Reaper, which is a Final Fantasy XIV original
Everyone thought it was
job.
Necromancer off all the teasing, but no, they went even more edgy somehow.
Yeah. It's going to be great playing as a tank in Endwalker, because between the new healer that everyone wants to play and the new melee DPS that everyone wants to play, those tank queues are going to be popping, man. Going to be instant.
I know, you got comfy job. So tell us about Reaper. Obviously, we have they use a scythe as a main weapon. What else did they share about Reaper?
So part of Reaper's rotation, you can summon a void scent. A void scent, which is a
Sorry, Karen. Sorry.
Okay. Do you really want me to explain what a void scent is?
Okay. I want to know a bit. Yeah.
Okay, give me the Cliff Notes
Reader's
version.
Digest version. Yeah.
Is it like a spirit with you or something?
It is a spirit of a sort. So basically, in the Final Fantasy XIV world, you have 14 different. Well, used to be 14 different worlds. there's the source, which is Heidelin. Then there's the different shards. The first is the one you go to in Shadowbringers. But the 13th was one that was lost to the void when the Yassians tried to force a rejoining. And it didn't go well, and basically it got swallowed by the void, became part of it, and all of the inhabitants became void sent, which are basically demons.
So when I'm looking at that Reaper job art, it has like this like almost Grim Reaper skeleton like coming out of like your side, your body. It reminds me of Dizzy from Guilty Gear when she has like that angel and that Reaper surrounding her. Like that's the immediate thing that comes to mind. So for people who aren't like deep into FF14, I assume this spirit or this void scent that you're talking about will assist you in battle. Will they be able to like help you with your skills, or will they like possess you? Have they got into any of that?
Basically, they just said that it's part of your rotation. They did release a video showcasing some of the actions. It seems like you can use it to kind of buff some of your actions for burst damage, but we don't have a detailed like action list. We might get more of that in the live letter tonight, maybe not, because there will be another deluge of information tonight because the live letter is coming up. So probably some more detailed information.
What's a live letter? What does that mean?
Basically, well, here you go, George. I'll use language that you're familiar with. It's a Final Fantasy XIV version of a war table.
Oh god, no. No.
Nice. I like that. I like that a lot.
Now I get it, and I don't like it.
But yeah, so there's that stuff. They did detail more information about the collector's edition for Endwalker. It was a little bit weird how they stressed that there isn't going to be a physical copy for Endwalker. It's just like it's only a digital game, even if you get the collector's edition. They said, oh well, 80% of people don't buy a physical copy. It's like, well, Shadowbringers, you couldn't buy a physical copy on PC. So that's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Did you
there,
get the collector's
but
edition?
Yeah. No,
it's sold out.
It's sold out instantly.
Really?
Instantly, probably. I imagine. Like,
yep. Hopefully, it'll get restocked, or failing that,
it'll be bundled with 3090 cards if you can find them. Good luck. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But yeah, so lots of interesting stuff there. We kind of touched on the trailer that they released, the full trailer that they released alongside it. That was okay.
It's based. Go ahead.
So it's hype as hell, even if you don't know anything that's going on. But if you do know everything that's going on, if you have played this like up to that point, oh my god, there's sections of the trailers where they play the themes for each of the expansions, and it's just like
that's the impression I got. Like, even though I don't
just
play the game, like when I was watching that trailer, it's like, oh, when they're going over like these different people and like changing up the music for that, I was like, I imagine there's like a reference to like past expansions, like everything that's happened before is now leading up to this, like, you know,
well, that's how they're positioning the expansion itself as like a culmination of everything that came before it, before starting a new arc following it.
Yeah, I mean, like the Japanese kind of caption for the expansion is basically the final tale of the star.
It's like a tagline.
So
yeah,
that's yeah.
So is it like the end game of the Final Fantasy XIV
well,
sort of thing?
They basically.
Well,
I think we're going to say the same thing. They basically stated that no, this isn't the end of Final Fantasy XIV, but it's like the end of the current arc. Like it'll shift focus after this.
Yeah. Basically, Yoshi P has outright said that he considers Final Fantasy XIV to be his life's work, so he is going to keep working on it until the day he dies.
Dedication. Fair play.
I really like his Reaper cosplay. The photos of that going around were pretty nice.
Shout out to Koji Fox putting in the work to be his demon.
In 12 years, someone will have a whatever podcast look like in 12 years and installing the 20-year-old client for Final Fantasy XIV. And the trailer that they released, I can vouch for the fact that it is pretty hype, even if you don't have no context. it's basically Square Enix absolutely flexing the way they did like in the late PS2 era in that time, or PS1 era even. So it's basically them just saying like, yeah, we know we're good at this. So it's 6 minutes of just that.
That's why
When
they made the
Estinian
gameplay movie, right?
when Estinian popped off in the trailer, I cheered.
He
But yeah.
cried, cheered.
Any other big details outside of that initial batch of info from the digital fest that's going on?
We did get quite a bit more information about different areas. So we do know that Garlemald is going to have a field. We know that Thabnir is going to have I'm not sure if it's technically the city that's there or if it's a field, but basically we've got a bunch of information about different fields. I was saying that it seems like they've showcased more of them than they usually do, but granted, I wasn't really paying attention to Shadowbringers like pre-launch, so maybe I'm wrong and they just reveal everything. But between the fact that they've said that unlike with the previous expansions, the end of the story will be there at launch. So for perspective, like Shadowbringers, you had a conclusion at 5.0, but the actual Shadowbringers itself story wasn't concluded until 5.3. And then 5.4 and 5.5 were just like leading into Endwalker. With Endwalker, no. There's like an endpoint. 6.0, once that releases, that's the end of the Endwalker story, day and
Cool.
date.
Yeah.
So the fact they're saying that and they're already showing off so many areas, and I wonder if there might be one or two more fields than there usually is for expansions. I don't know.
And then the
Maybe.
only other thing that I recalled from just seeing people talk about what was going on was Final Fantasy fans will be will be familiar with the Magus sisters, and it seems they're coming into this expansion.
Well, that makes sense considering so much of Endwalker is very clearly the Final Fantasy IV expansion. I mean, the main class for the Warrior of Light this time is a paladin. Your best bro, your dragoon friend Estinian, is coming with you to the moon, and there's rabbits there.
I mean, I have like little to no takeaway when it comes to Final Fantasy XIV, but I was just thinking then, because we're talking about some of the same stuff when it was revealed, it feels like so long ago it was revealed. Like, I'm thinking back, that was just February, because that's when Werewolf came out. So like, it is crazy just how fast time has gone, which is irrelevant. But
Yeah, in February, that's when they revealed the expansion, talked about the level cap, the Sage Healer that James alluded to earlier, and all that stuff. So this was info drop 2, and then obviously you'll get a little bit more information from the live letter as well.
Yep. So yeah, that'll be tonight. Obviously, we won't be talking about it now because, but next week probably at least a little bit of information to talk about with 14 and whatnot. So look forward to it.
And also in Square Enix announcements, well, more of an announcement, we did learn that later this month, on May 26th, we are going to get a live stream for the Dragon Quest series celebrating its 35th anniversary. So obviously the hype would be for a potential Dragon Quest 12. I know Adam might be hoping for that Dragon Quest Monsters game that they teased a while back. But who knows? So we'll look forward to that in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's also pretty significant because like this is the first time in like Dragon Quest history that like it'll be live interpreted in English.
Must be big then.
It's a global thing rather than being staggered like Dragon Quest has been up until this point.
Yeah, so it's very worldwide facing. So that's very, I don't know. It's very exciting. It's gonna be like a 2-part event where part 1 is like currently like all the Dragon Quest things that are out now. Like most of them are in Japan, like Dragon Quest X, which is MMO, Dragon Quest Walk, which is kind of like a Pokemon Go-esque mobile app. Then you have all the other mobile games like Tact of the Stars, Rivals Ace, and whatnot. Personally, in my own little space, because I've been following the Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai new TV anime series, I hope they reveal new details for the new console game coming to or the new Adventure of Dai console game.
Oh
because,
yeah.
that's
I remember
that's personally very exciting for me. Like that TV series is like one of my favorites going on at the moment. It's very, very exciting when new episodes come out.
I think
but-
Brian was looking forward to it as well, if I remember.
I remember I was pretty excited by the initial launch trailer from a year ago now. It's been a while. But yeah,
It's so much more impactful if you know what's going on in that. Oh, it's so good. But I think a lot of people far and wide though are hoping and praying that they'll announce Dragon Quest 12 in this in this upcoming stream. And of course, like Dragon Quest has been hit. Like Dragon Quest 11 was freaking amazing, and if they can somehow either match that or surpass that, and somehow, if the stars align and they announce it to be like a global simultaneous worldwide release, then that'd just be insane.
Or they'll troll us and give us 10 MMO.
That'd be awesome too, because Dragon Quest 10 I hear so many good things about Dragon Quest 10, but it's probably not that if they're already just like the way that this stream is structured is they're going to provide news for whatever's out now, and then the last part of it is like the newest thing that's coming to Dragon Quest. So it's going to be a brand new thing. But you know what?
also
Global would be pretty good.
well, we've got Sega making a pushing effort to be like Phantasy Star and Yakuza are global products now. Hopefully Atlas catches up. And if Dragon Quest is also coming around to that, I mean,
Square
what a
Enix
time to live in.
Yeah, Square Enix has been pretty good lately. Like when you think about like SaGa Frontier came out simultaneous worldwide, NieR came out simultaneous worldwide for the Replicant at least. The Automata was like 2 weeks after, but
in Automata, it's like you imported the game. It has like a whole English audio there.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it was total. They could have had that day and date. They just didn't for whatever reason.
Obviously, a lot more Japanese companies are. When you think about their future plans, they're really trying to push for global simultaneous now, I think.
Also in Square Enix news, we've got 2 different bits of information concerning the upcoming Neo: The World Ends With You, also a summer release coming out in just 2 months. So we got the opening movie for it, which is basically just another 2 minutes of Square Enix flexing, only in a different style this time.
It's so good. I've watched it at least 4 times now. I love the music, I love the graphics. Like
another global simultaneous worldwide launch, as we were mentioning earlier, Square Enix. But yeah,
and then there was also another info dump where they talked a little bit about some of the fashion, some of the food items, the pins, a few more characters, turf war mechanic. So Adam, without me just digging through the actual like marketing language here, was there any like major highlight about what they showed here that you think is worth championing?
It seems like it has a lot of carryover from the first game in terms of like the food effects, the fashion that you can do that affects your stats, and things like that. One thing that I found was maybe a little bit more interesting. First of all, they explain that there's this turf war mechanic and that there's like these different teams now that you're vying for control and you claim locations, but I don't, without having played the game, I don't know exactly how that, like what you actually do, like what that accomplishes, but there's some mechanic where you're like actually claiming sections of the city now against like other teams. So that's new. And then it also mentions this this ability that Rindo's friend, what's his name, Frey has,
Fret. Yeah,
where Fret. He has this his ability is called Remind, where he can jog people's memories to have them remember things. I saw this. I bet George noticed this.
Is that a Kingdom Hearts
Fret's
reference?
ability is called Remind, and if you watch the trailer 4 times, Remind appears behind Fret. And the word dive appears behind the other girl whose name I forget. So Remind and dive. Yeah. Sounds like Kingdom Hearts word. But anyways, there's like a mini game that you put a memory back together with this character. So, that's a little different. The original game didn't really have like mini games with your partners with like a unique ability. I mean, they had like unique kind of combat styles, but now they have this sort of other mini game ability, I guess. We'll see. But yeah, just more information on people who for the people who love to like really like absolutely have to know everything they possibly can about the game before it releases. They released a bunch more details on like all those things.
Yeah, still looks really good. What else can we say? This looks really good.
It is the only remaining game of this year besides Psychonauts that has me like literally like giddy with excitement. I'm so excited for NieR.
Well, what happened to Scarlet Nexus?
I want the Ace Attorney.
Oh yeah, well,
yeah,
it's not squealing. Like I'm sat here
Yeah,
like
that's not at giddy. That's just at anticipation. That's lower on
yeah.
the bar.
We need
I have to be more hyped for the great Ace Attorney.
we need a George excitement meter for this for his
I
upcoming.
have many levels of hype. Too many levels.
I guess while we're talking about Square Enix, let's skip ahead. Pre-registration is open for the Western release of NieR Reincarnation for anyone who's finished up Replicant and Automata and wants more. So even I, who rarely ever play phone games and has never really played a gacha game, pre-downloaded this to my iPhone. And I don't know if this is official, but the iOS App Store lists a November release date. I forget exactly what day in November, but that's
November
when it
seems
says
too
like
far away.
It seems it feels like a placeholder, but who really knows? Like it feels like it like realistically, like when these things happen for like mobile games, like it feels like it's either coming like in a month or like 2, but who knows?
Well, they did this with Crash Bandicoot on the Run. Like they were like, oh, pre-sign up now, and it was like 7 months out until it actually came out. Like it's like, oh, I'll get a skin when it comes out, and I was like, oh, okay, this will be like 3 months, but no, it was like nearly a year.
Yeah,
November 6th is the day that the App Store lists as a potential release date.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if that was actually the real thing. Because like, man, you're really ramping it up early, very early. We're still.
Well, I just hope they like release it with like enough content. Like I think one of the problems is like when you release it on Globo, it's like 2 years or a year behind, and everyone already knows what to do from the Japanese version.
So yeah, I really wonder if they'll make an effort to catch up, because this game is just barely came out in February of this year in Japan. So I mean, there's still not like a crazy gap between them if it were to release fairly soon. And I wonder if they try to catch up or not. But who knows? I think right now in the Japanese version, they're having a collab with Drakengard 3, adding Zero to the game. And then I think like a few characters have like some of the sisters' outfits in there as well. So, I mean,
I'm seeing a lot more Drakengard stuff, like fan art and discussion and everything, like just through osmosis, through on Twitter. I'm just seeing Drakengard a lot recently. A lot of people like renewed interest in that.
really makes you think after playing Replicant. If you play Drakengard, it's like, I wonder.
Yeah.
But
I've read about that. Like, I'm not going into the Chow territory of like time to pull up the YouTube video explaining everything about Drakengard.
Hey, it's better than playing Suffering for Drakengard.
Oh yeah, I've heard with Drakengard that might actually be a preferable alternative. But yeah, I'm just seeing a lot of it. That's all. That's it. That's the comment.
I'm really looking forward to the English dub of Reincarnation, because both NieR games have had excellent dubs. So I'm really interested to see like. How's that sounding? What does the cast look like for that?
And another upcoming game that has pre-registration open as of this week, Boltrend has opened up pre-registration for Atelier Online Alchemist of Bressisle. I hope I pronounced it right.
She has like a Bressisle or something. I don't know.
Bressisle. So yeah, this I don't know if this one also doesn't. Like I did not. I pre-loaded the NieR game. I did not preload this, so I don't know what it has listed as a potential release date. It wasn't actually declared in the press release for the pre-registration.
Yeah,
so
Boltrend recently released just this past week, like Arc the Lad R, that mobile game that came out for Arc the Lad. And I think I mentioned this in a few podcasts back, but that's like in a weird situation where like that game, like I assume had to come out due to their contract, but like before that game even came out, like I think a week ago or something, the developers for that game were Forwardworks, I think, announced that they were ending the service of Arc the Lad R in Japan. So now it's in this weird situation where the global version of that game came out, even though the original game, the base game, is ending. So I really wonder like what does like the install base looks like for that game. What does the player base look like for that game at the moment? Because like it kind of has like an expiration date at the bare minimum, if not sooner.
That doesn't sound
So,
really
who
pleasing.
knows? But I think Atelier Online is still going in Japan.
What was that gotcha game I was thinking of? I was thinking about like Illusion Connect, where it kind of bombed in its like home territory, and it's like, what does it do for its
It's still
global
coming out
audience?
with new content. I think it came out, I think originally in China, and then I think the global version, the English version, came out first, then the Japanese version after it. That's how that came out, and I think they're still adding content, as far as I'm aware. I don't know if it bombed necessarily its original version, but it's still ongoing.
In other news, this is a sales update for a game that we thought very highly of, at least in general last year. Sakuna of Rice and Ruin has shipped 950,000 units worldwide, so just under the million mark, which, considering the size of the team and just the publishing history of Marvelous and Xseed, like, is this their most successful game ever? It's up there.
10,000%, yes.
Yeah, so the last time we talked, I think the last time we had a sales update of this game, I was like, I need to play this. I guess I'm still at that point where I kind of want to play this. This was I think one of Adam's favorite games of last year. It made it into
my
our
favorite
top
game
10
of last year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so
It's that's remarkable. I did this easily surpassed 1 million. It's for sure. I can't even imagine how overjoyed the developers are. It's well deserved. And I think
it's like 2 developers and 1 person on the soundtrack, so it's like a team of 3, maybe 4. It's a very small team.
Yeah.
So
and
the fact that they see this level of success is just awesome.
It's really like cool when you think about like the development history and stories that came out of that game, where like Nintendo was so impressed with like what they showed off that like they reached out to them. It's like, hey, bring this to the Switch, and like it took like quite a bit of convincing to like get them to agree, like to bring that game on the Switch. But ultimately, it definitely paid off in spades, because I imagine most of the sales for this game is that Switch version.
Yeah, the Switch version probably helped push it over the edge to do that.
So no, all the best, well deserved. I'm
very cool
about this.
All right, I have no idea how to introduce this next topic. Maybe this is something Adam can explain. So over the last month, we have kind of been going over a bunch of different companies' financials. We had a big podcast on Nintendo. We talked about CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk, I think the week before, in like late March. This week, it's Sega's turn. We talked a little bit about them with Yakuza following off the heels of the Lost Judgment announcement. And within their fiscal year financials, they keep mentioning something called a super game. Just like that. Adam, what do we know of, or what do you think about Sega's super game?
It's capitalized, capital S, capital G, super game.
Yeah, so I like to just kind of sift through these financial reports, and I don't like get deep into them, but just try to get like a cursory overview of like, oh, okay, so here's the things that they say did well, or what they're specifically mentioning. Like, for example, Marvelous said their most 2 successful games last year are Story of Seasons and Sakuna Rice and Ruin. And the game next year that they're really focused on is Rune Factory 5. So that kind of gives you a clue and like, okay, so this is what Marvelous is focusing on now. But like for Sega, being a new fiscal year, a lot of these companies, they go over, their goals for the upcoming year. And a lot of companies also do like a longer term, like looking further ahead than just the coming year. They call it like the medium term plan. And Sega's like upcoming goals, some of the ones you probably have heard about are things like, more global releases. We're seeing that with Lost Judgment, more remasters and remakes. We're seeing that with like SMP Nocturne. And so like that's their sort of like near-term goals. But also for the long term, they introduced the idea of super game. And it kind of stuck out to me because they just keep mentioning super game in like this formal press release, and it seems kind of silly that that's just how they're referring to it, as super game. And what it is, from what we can tell, is that it is at least based off of a first person shooter type game from a European developer I don't know if that is the super game or like the what leads to
Conduit?
it. Yeah, no, it's a game that's in development. I'll get to that more in a minute. But like that is going to their goal for it is for it to basically surpass 100 billion yen lifetime sales, which is a lot. And they even project out to like 2030 that this is going to be like literally like at least 33% of their earnings is on this one game. Obviously that's projecting out like 10 years. So it's like, that's huge. This is a super game. They mentioned that it's going to incorporate IP and things like that. What people are sort of assuming that it might be sort of like is something like Sega's Fortnite or something like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, some sort of live service, multiplayer, almost more like a platform rather than a game. You can argue, or at least I know Tim Sweeney would argue that Fortnite is more than a game. Super game, right? But yeah, this is like what Sega's long-term plan is I guess, when you think about it, like Sega doesn't have like a huge franchise. Like Sonic is probably their closest. But like when we're talking about like comparing with things like Monster Hunter or something like that, or even Capcom or anyways, they just don't have like a gigantic franchise. They have a lot of big ones, but nothing on that scale. So maybe this is their way of trying to get some sort of like really big money making, earner that uses their IP in some way. And we'll see how that turns out. It is just kind of interesting because it kind of shows us what Sega is one of the things they're focusing on the next several years. Now, Creative Assembly, who is the team behind the Total War series, obviously Total War is one of Sega's most profitable series too, but they have already announced that they're making a sci-fi shooter, and it's been in development for like 4 years. So there's speculation, is this the super game, or maybe this will somehow lead into the super game, because Creative Assembly is based in UK, so they would fit the profile they mentioned. But yeah, that's Sega is doing they have some shooting for the moon project here that has a long tail. It'll be a while before we really see it, but that's one of their goals going forward, alongside the global releases of their existing franchises and remasters and all that. So
I can't wait to shoot Sonic as Joker in a sci-fi shooter in 2030.
Sakura Kakame 2 is a first-person shooter, guys.
After it too. But the only way to be sure is for us to like ask for like a Creative Assembly tour of their studio, and then like look around like looking for super any of the monitors. But
I hope that just ends up being the title, just super game.
It sounds like they're trying to make like their own.
Yeah, Fortnite, Destiny. I think that's sort of kind of what they're shooting for. Roblox, maybe.
Sounds like a bad idea.
Okay,
I'm gonna say
it. Everyone has their own version of what a super game is in their heads. If you were to pick like a quick 3 like bullets of what a super game should have, what would it be?
It's going to be multiplayer, obviously. Maybe that's easy.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say like this easy stuff.
Well, obviously it has to have a battle pass.
1 bullet point. Super game. Battle pass.
cool skins.
Cool skin. Loot boxes. All right.
This sounds awful. This doesn't sound good.
And it's going to be sold. It's going to be sold exclusively. It's going to be sold
about
exclusively on the Sega Online storefront.
All right.
It's going to have some sort of like physical analog, whether it's like Toys to Life or cards or like it's something like that.
geez.
Something you can buy at like Walmart checkout counters.
Actually, I'd be down
But
for
Toys to
that.
Life's still a thing.
No.
Amiibo are still around.
I think
Kind of.
I was talking about this with Adam. We were discussing like this whole Sega financials that they were they shared. Like I was wondering, did they mention at all anything about their Fog Gaming initiative? Because back then, like a few months back, when the Famitsu journalist or a journalist that submitted like a column to Famitsu, said he was talking about the concept of fog gaming that Sega was cooking up, and it's also some sort of cloud gaming solution for Japanese arcades. I'm like wondering where is that right now? Is that still very early? And like I would assume that like this would be the place where they would at least mention it anywhere, but it's very interesting to me that like they didn't mention any sort of like what the state of their fog gaming initiative is like. But They did another fun thing about this whole thing though is they there's a slide on it called utilization of IP assets, and they're basically listing down like series of like some IPs that they have, like active IP versus past IP groups.
Oh, I saw this. Yeah.
IPs, and like they were gonna utilize these in like 3 different categories. They're either gonna get a remaster, which is they define as converting past titles to HD animations, or a remake, which is significant addition of new features while maintaining gameplay of the original game, or reboot, which is reconstruct a new game while maintaining the look and feel of the world of the IP. Obviously, some active IPs that they mention, that the obvious ones, Yakuza,
Jet
Persona.
Set Radio.
Okay, all right. Phantasy Stars.
Yeah.
I don't know why they call Sonic an active IP, but I guess
this has to be pretty big that they have all these like really big franchises, and it's not even considered their super game. Persona 5, not their super game.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like-
if you think about it, Persona, well, it's like it sells well. It's not like penetrating the mainstream like Final Fantasy. Like I would still call Persona relatively niche. Like,
yeah, I mean, like for super game like comparisons, like I'm sort of calling like Monster Hunter games. I mean, they don't really have like World would be the closest. And just think of it this way: Monster Hunter World has outsold the entire Persona franchise. So that's kind of the thing you're talking about. Is like we're trying to get something that's like much bigger than just Persona,
Okay.
but might incorporate Persona
No, but I'm
somehow.
just saying,
Well,
like,
I
there's a
forget if you
lot of
mentioned this,
things
but
there.
the forecast is that their super game and they wanted to sell more than Sonic, Phantasy Star, Persona, Yakuza, Total War combined. They
Oh,
like
God.
Well,
it's-
they have this graph, and the graph. I don't know how seriously you're supposed to like pixel count like the colors on the graph, but they show like by 2030 the super game, that its component of the earnings is basically just as big as this other section of the earnings graph, which includes Sonic, Persona, Yakuza, Phantasy Star Online 2, and what was the other one? Total War. Like that's like according to this graph, that's going to be basically about the same as all of those combined in terms of
This
earnings.
is absolutely putting all your eggs in one basket, and I just like I like a lot of what like Sega, their IPs and stuff, but none of their not even all their IPs combined seem like they could reach like this level where it's like that. Like even if you have something like Fortnite where it's like a platform, it just I just don't see it going well. I'd love it to. Like
I just think they're just chasing a trend, It's like Sakura Kakume. It's like, oh yeah, we see how big FGO is, so we're gonna chase after that trend and make a ton of money.
This is not quite.
I feel like
it's not quite the same, but what my mind keeps going to is how Amazon is like insistent on having an MMO, like they like which they're like chasing after WoW and Final Fantasy, and maybe to a lesser extent like Elder Scrolls Online. And like we want a piece of that pie. Let's just create like one of the most difficult genres to like get off the ground first.
Yeah.
And at least Sega is like well established, and Amazon isn't in terms of gaming. But it just seems like
Amazon has a big bank of money in case if the product fails.
All right.
It also just reminds me of like remember the battle royale that Ubisoft like championed last year, Hyperscape, and then it just like it just did like nothing. It's like what if Super Game just does that where it just like no one gives a shit. Like I don't know.
I think they're banking on like Hyperscape was a new IP where I think the super game they're very vague, and maybe they'll explain more in like an investor call. I'm not sure, or like in the the yearly shareholders meeting or whatever. But it seems like the super game will somehow incorporate like their IP. So like I think there's going to be like a crossover element to it. Like you can play as Sonic or Joker or Kiryu or something, to try to get like those fan bases on board compared to Hyperscape, which is sort of like completely new, I think. So I don't know. I'm not saying like this is going to work, but I think that's what they're banking on.
Yeah. All right, so let's go over some of the examples of past IP groups or including dormant IPs, and then you tell me, should they get a remaster, a remake, or a reboot? Ooh. All right. Okay. Crazy Taxi.
Reboot.
Remaster.
Leave it.
Leave it.
Oh, holy shit. Jet Set Radio.
Reboot.
Reboot? Space Channel 5.
Leave it.
I don't know what
Leave
that
it.
is.
Dang, wow. Holy shit.
Well, that's funny because Space Channel 5 is the one here that's had the most recent release.
Hey,
technically, yeah. I don't know why they have Space Channel 5 and Streets of Rage on here because they both got new entries.
Like last year.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Streets, but that was like
Streets
it
is
was like
awesome.
yeah, but it was like handled under like a different company though, so who knows? I
Oh,
also
yeah,
I also don't know why they segregated Megami Tensei and active IP and Soul Hackers and dormant IP or past IP. That's a
Yeah,
little
this is weird because it's like it's a sub series of Devil Summoner, right? And that's
yeah.
part of it.
It's like,
Yeah,
so-
Why do they put Soul Hackers there, but not
have
like Digital
no
Devil
idea.
Saga or Devil Survivor? It just seems like a weird thing to like slot in there.
All right, Shinobi.
Meh.
Remake.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
Remaster, remake, or reboot?
Reboot.
Reboot. Oh.
Reboot.
I
Altered
guess
Beast.
reboot. Yeah.
I've never played Altered Beast, but is it any good?
It's so simple. Like it's barely a thing,
play
you know. Like it's an idea more than anything else at this point. So like,
All I remember that game is like a scrolling game where
Yeah,
you just keep
yeah,
punching
yeah.
people in the face.
Yeah, that's so.
I want to play that game as it was, just remaster it.
remaster. Okay, all right. Panzer Dragoon. Oh yeah, it's
Remake.
already
Ew.
remake.
I mean, it just got a remake.
Gotta remake Saga. Oh my
Nice.
god.
leave it.
Leave it.
Balan
Balan Wonderworld.
want you to
We're all
play.
playing different Ballad.
Yeah, they're
Wow.
crazy. I think the weird omissions here that they're very. I don't know where it is now, but the two that stick out of my mind are Sakura Wars isn't here and Valkyria isn't here at all. No mention.
Those are like released.
Golden Axe. Golden Axe in some form.
Oh yeah.
They're not even under active IP, you know. So who
I
knows?
do
They're both
I
in
do-
the.
wonder if like obviously the biggest one there for like I imagine most people would be Jet Set Radio, but they've got that Bomb Rush Cyberpunk that is like a spiritual successor, and you know, like if that does well, I don't think you need a Jet Set Radio. I think that's something they could have done years ago and it would have done well, but yeah, don't look at me, Sega. I would have bought it.
A lot of people in our sphere, of course, as well, they see that Skies of Arcadia, which, you know, it's only one game with a re-release, so it's barely a franchise, but like that's not mentioned at all either. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. Who knows what the future is for like, because like you know, if you talk to like the Japanese audience, like that, a few years back, Sega had like a poll of like, what are series that you would like Sega to like revitalize or a new entry? You know, Sakura Wars is easily the top.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
not even, but yeah. So who knows? Who knows? I'm really interested to see like where like what they decide to bring back. Sega has such a
For,
large.
for Skies of Arcadia, I know people who have played it probably just want it to like a sequel or follow up or a successor. Or I'm just kind of like who hasn't played it but has always wanted to. Like just tidy it up, make it clean, remaster it, get it on PC or something, or modern consoles. Like
Just play the GameCube version.
Reboot it.
I mean, yeah.
Reboot.
Remaster it and then reboot. Like
Okay, all right.
reboot it, leading off with a remaster. There you go.
7 remake.
Okay, so we're doing what are we doing? Like the Trials of Mana method? Put in
Yeah, that'll do it.
By the way, this is kind of off topic, but we're talking like tangentially about Sonic. It's been a while since we've had like a Sonic game, hasn't it?
Yeah, like
Sonic Mania was 2017. Sonic Forces was 2017.
really?
Those are like yeah, it's
I
older
thought
than I
Forces
thought
was
it
recent. Oh my god.
No, it's not. The most recent game seems to be Team Sonic Racing, which was 2019.
That doesn't count.
yeah.
And then there's
But
like there's
there's
the
there's
Olympic game with Mario.
There's the rumor mongering about the Colors remaster.
Yeah,
But,
I feel like we'll hear something soon.
Ah,
This
you
year
know
is
what?
like
That
the
doesn't
30th
excite me at
anniversary.
all. Yeah, that doesn't excite me. Like a new Sonic game would be awesome. I would love a new Sonic game.
people don't want the Sonic game anymore. They want animated Knuckles on the big screen, and that's what they're getting. Okay.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
There is a movie. There is a Netflix series coming.
Are they doing the Netflix series? Okay, I guess.
Yeah, it's like
I
a
want Sonic the movie, the game.
dimensions, chaos. I don't know. It's about like dimension hopping. Apparently, that's what the synopsis
So
says.
every Sonic game in the last 5 years got it.
Yes, pretty much.
Super game.
Super game. I'm hyped for
I
Super
don't-
game. I don't know what the fuck it is, but I'm
Yeah,
hyped.
we'll revisit this
Uh,
if we're still alive.
It's already a skip.
I'm already
First-person
squealing about
shooter.
George hype.
it.
All right, 2 more bit pieces of news, one small, one bit bigger. A game that we talked about quite a bit earlier this year, Gnosia, which released on Switch, is coming to PC later this year, sometime in 2021. They had a PC like announcement trailer, but it just basically just says Gnosia on Steam, and that's kind of it. Like no date, no window as far as I can tell. But yeah, really cool. I know that the people who played it, including George and not George, Cullen and Josh, have thought really highly of it. So now it'll also be available at some point. It'll be $24.99. It's going to release this year.
Well worth it.
Yeah.
It's still my favorite game this year. Yeah, hands down. So I really hope that a lot of people give it a try, and it's so good. I love it to pieces.
And the last bit of news on here is more information about the upcoming, not yet announced for localization, Kuro no Kiseki. So when this game was first revealed a bit back, we were kind of teased about like the unrevealed characters. Like all we knew were their ages and maybe their genders, I forget. And 2 of them were revealed just last week in, was it Famitsu magazine?
Yeah.
Or no, I guess it was published in Famitsu, but directly from Falcom. The 2 characters are go ahead, James.
One of them is a maid, which but there is a robot dog, so who's to say if it's bad or not?
So one of the characters is Risette Twinnings. That's the maid. So a 20-year-old uses a pistol and a blade gear. So despite her graceful appearance, she has superhuman strength, speed, and combat capabilities. So what's that character from
Sakura from Naruto?
She's like the other maid.
No. Adam, what's that anime that had like the OVA about the maid assassin?
Oh, Black Lagoon?
Yeah.
Oh,
what's that character's name?
Roberta.
Yeah, so that's like that's who I think of, even though I guess my memory sucks and I forgot her name. But yeah. So just like Sharon, basically. So like a maid assassin, superhuman girl. And then the other character is Quatre Salison, who is an age 15-year-old, basically genius, it seems like, works underneath a professor that took him in and adopted him. He's got the robot dog. He's taken a master's course to learn and focus on making orbital drones. So kind of like the tech kid archetype sort of thing.
Quatre, because I think of Gundam Wing every time I look at his name. I'm like, that's a good
Quatre.
And then like
I just love that character for his haircut. That one side.
It is so funny. The dog looks like Blade Wolf from Metal Gear Rising. It's just like, yeah, that's Blade Wolf. all it really is the chainsaw tail, and then you're good to go. But sure, I guess. I mean, these are, I don't know how to feel about this game, to be honest, because I just like,
learning the bits and pieces about characters, and also we got some locations. We learned about the capital Langport and the industrial city Basel. Like this is all well and good, but like the more exciting thing about this game is what's already been announced. Like the action focus, the being able to switch from action to turn based on the fly. Like the more frameworky stuff, I think is what's exciting about this, and the fact that in general it's kind of like it's still the same continuity, but it's going to be similar to Cold Steel 1 or I guess 0, where it's a different cast, different location. I'm guessing that within an entry or 2, it'll thread back right into the overarching narrative. So as an aside, I'm excited to play the fan translation of Trails to Azure hopefully soon, and then Cold Steel 4, and then
playing for the first time. We're gonna just
tap my toes for Hajimari.
I think the weird part about like the new stuff they shared for Kuro no Kiseki is like you have this new Zypha or Zipha system, and like this is where you place your new orbment slots in, and they're like it's a very like it looks like a wallet to me almost, but it's also you can like talk to this thing, like it has a voice. So like whatever you like think about like past Trails games and like the devices you use to like slot in orbs. Now you can talk to it.
Now it's a Pokedex.
Yeah. So, all right, sure. Why not? But they all have like it looks very similar to what you may have seen in past Trails games. concept.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to dial in to like the details, Gamatsu actually did a nice translation of everything that was shown. Like, there's different like how the original Trails in the Sky games and then the Crossbow games, like what you slot in each line determines what spells you can cast, and they eventually kind of got rid of that in the later games, or they kind of narrowed it down a bit. Where here you have a weapon line where it affects attack functions, a shield line, a drive line. So it seems like they're kind of making it. They're changing up how the ordnance work again, and it sounds like it's going to be a little bit more involved than it was in like the Cold Steel series, where it was ended up being pretty simple.
It's a lot of systems that I don't think I want in a super game. I think that's too complicated.
Wins Falcom super game.
Not far off enough.
Obviously, Sen no Kiseki 3 online.
Oh shit, you're right.
We have a mobile game has gacha system now.
That's like in China, right? They're the Chinese developers making a Trails of Cold Steel 3 gacha game.
That seems weird.
I mean, that must be
like a gacha game based on the IP. I can say like that makes sense, but like it's based on a specific title. It's based on just Cold Steel 3.
Yeah,
I mean, is that really any different from ISA 6 online?
There's already the other one, right?
I think they also made a Trails in the Sky online game too, and I think that was like an MMO over in China. I think that's something I remember.
No Kiseki.
Right? Yeah.
That's more like browser, I think.
It used to be a browser. It used to be on browser. Then it got like a mobile phone port. So yeah.
What do they do if they introduce like Cold Steel 4 elements?
You're right. Actually, that is Falcom Super Game. Just make a gacha game out of every single Trails game, every individual Trails entry.
So I know Adam keeps on top of this, but at this time last year, we had already had the announcement of Cold Steel 4's English release, but not of East 9 yet. Is that how it was?
Correct, because East 9 was announced at the first New Game Plus Expo, which was in mid-June.
Oh yeah, that's the summer of not E3.
Yep.
But as of this year, there is no new announcement on that front.
Well, I mean, I imagine maybe around E3 time or close to it, maybe North America will. That's when we'll hear about a localization of Hajimari.
Can't wait for the second summer of not E3, but E3 is also there.
Summer of E3.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it? The summer game mess is coming.
It's like now that E3 has its own thing, it's going to be like worse than last year, but maybe also better. Who knows?
I don't know. Everyone go install the E3 app, and then we'll figure it out.
Maybe I'll use a fake address. And unless I skipped anything and forgot to go back to it, that covers the news for this week. So a lot of Square Enix, a lot of cool announcements. We spent a ton of time talking about some ongoing betas for some really promising looking games. So I think this was like the most exciting kind of like slate of things to talk about in a while. So this was a fun one. I'm glad we were able to get all 6 of us here to talk about it. So we'll have to drag Cullen by next time at some point.
Dragon Quest. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about that in just a couple of weeks, depending on what they announce there. That could be another big podcast.
Do you think it's going to be a Dragon Quest Super game?
Yeah, Dragon Quest 12 will just be Square Enix Super Game.
Square Enix Super Game. Sick.
See, I would play a Square Enix Super Game for sure. Like that would be cool.
Yeah, no. See, that's the thing. You think it'd be like tied to Final Fantasy or something, but no, it's a Dragon Quest game.
Well deserved.
I'm really happy with most Square Enix products. I just think people are a little harsh on them just because they make good IPs, you know? That's what I think.
Yeah, Square Enix has had a really strong start to the... I'd say strong start to the generation, but like the recent success really isn't tied to the generation. It's just they've had a really good couple years.
Yeah, really.
Especially if Final Fantasy 16 ends up being not too far off, and we see that sooner rather than later.
Oh, it looks so good.
I don't know. I keep thinking about Child's Comment, and I look at Ballad Wonderworld and like,
oh yeah, I guess we've got that stain that you just won't wash out.
I don't know, Child.
Oh, geez.
I mean, you can make a case for it. I mean, go buy that game, play through it, and tell me that it's a good Square Enix game.
Well, I'll just blame on
That's what that
Yuji
did.
Naka.
Yeah. Square Enix just tied their name to a sinking ship. So is that really their fault? Yeah. Okay.
Well, okay, they named that subsidiary Balan Company. They risked it all. So
I actually had a little faith in it because I am a big fan of Knights for Sega Saturn. So I thought maybe, this was like my Knights successor, but it just didn't really happen.
It's success Knights out, right? Being Balan. Just kidding.
Anyways, all right. So we have a bunch of features up on the site that we talked about. We had the Famicom Detective Club review, both written and on our YouTube channel. The Pokemon Snap review, the Scarlet Nexus hands-on preview that George wrote, the big release dump for Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, all the other Square Enix news, including the Dragon Quest announcement of an announcement, and then the 2 different bits for Neo: The World Ends With You. Everything else we talked about is also on the site. You can visit our Discord channel at discord.com/RPG site if you want to find like-minded people to talk about anything that we discuss here. You can also visit or follow us on Twitter at RPG site. And we're still poking and messing around with kind of different experimental things on our Instagram page, instagram.com/RPG site. So we're kind of linking different like review cards there and some like news highlights and new upcoming releases, either on a weekly or monthly basis. Haven't really quite decided yet, but lots of things, kind of works in progress. You might have noticed in a couple places that our branding is altered a little bit. It's not completely rolled out yet, but you'll see it on the thumbnail of this podcast. You'll see it in our Discord icon and maybe on our other social channels soon. It's rolling out, so we're happy with it. We think it looks cool. So bringing
But
in
if
a
you
new
have
generation
feedback,
with a new look.
we're always open to feedback. If you hate it,
Yeah,
then
if you hate it,
we're
let us
sorry.
know and provide an alternative.
And for those who are using the Instagram app, it is just the tag is RPG site, and that would get you straight there.
And if you're still on Facebook for some reason, RPG Site Net, we're there too. But anyways, we will be back next week with another episode of the podcast. Until then, take care, stay safe. Talk to you later.
Super game.